So I'm interviewing Salman Stemmer, and the interview is taking place on Sunday the 19th of February 2006. The interview is taking place in Prestwich, Manchester, and I am Rosalind Livshin.
Right here from outside.
This is the interview with Salman Stemmer, and it's tape 1. So if you just tell me your name.
Salman Stemmer.
And was that your name at birth?
No, I was born Sally Eigner, because my father married my mother, Alea Sholem, on the Jewish wedding. So I was born officially to a girl. Later I married officially and changed the name, adopted me and my other brother, and the name was changed from Eigner, Israel Eigner and Salman Eigner, to Israel Stemmer and Salman Stemmer. So on my birth certificate I'm Sally Eigner, changed to Sally Stemmer.
And when were you born?
On the 2nd of September 1916 in Nuremberg.
So what does that make you now?
Nearly 90.
Now, if you tell me first about your parents and their families.
My father was born in Auschwitz. Later became Auschwitz, so the German called it Auschwitz. He died when he was 80 in 1958, so it makes him 78, I think he was born. He married, I don't know how old he was, probably in his 20s, married a woman. She had 3 children with her. After the woman died, I don't know how she died, he married a girl from a small shtetl in Israelitsia, from Ravaruska, and had 2 children with her. And she died. My mother was a sister to his second wife. So she married him to bring up her sister's children, and she had 8 children with him. So together they had 13 children. Until my mother died, we didn't know that the older brothers and sisters were not from the same mother. When we started saying Kaddish, and they didn't have to say something, we realized that they are not brothers from the same parents. But my mother brought them up as her own children. Sorry.
And did your father remarry after that?
Then when my mother died, my father married another sister. I had no children with her. She brought the smaller children up. I was already 14 years old when my mother died. But they had my youngest brother was a few months old when she died.
Did you know your father's parents, your grandparents?
I saw them once in 1923. They were living in Auschwitz. They came to the wedding for my older sister, Regina. She married in 1923. So my grandfather and my grandmother came to the wedding.
What were their names?
Moshe and Zipporah Stemmer. He also was a watchmaker.
What do you remember about them?
Not much. 1923, how old was I? 7 years old. I remember there was no taxis at that time. They came to the wedding, and there was 2 horses with a little wagon like the Queen is, I think. And the kids, we as kids, we are jumping on the back of the thing when they were going to the wedding. Not much. I was very young.
How many brothers and sisters did your father have?
My father had a lot. I didn't know them, all of them. I think he had about 5 or 6 brothers and 3 sisters.
And where were they living?
One was living in Germany. 2 were living in Germany. We knew them quite good. One was in Ludwigshafen. The other one, 2 were in Ludwigshafen. and one was living, and the sister was living in Frankfurt. The rest were living in Galicia, in Poland somewhere, in Krakow, in Katowice, I think. One was living in Czechoslovakia, one brother. I think nearly all of them perished in the Holocaust.
Did they belong to a Hasidic sect?
Yeah, most of them, yeah. Most of them were sons of Hasidim, sons of Bobov, except the one in Czechoslovakia. He was more Mizrahi. But all Orthodox, nearly all of them. Not nearly, all of them were Orthodox, yeah. The two brothers in Germany had beard. The one in Krakow also had a beard. I met him once. The sisters, the one in Germany was very Orthodox. I met another sister once in Poland. Orthodox, very Orthodox, yeah.
So your father, which Rebbe did he follow?
The Bobov. Bobov.
And did he dress in a Hasidic way?
I show you a picture from him. My father was showing.
We'll see it later. We'll film the pictures later. Yeah, don't worry about that now. But how? I mean, if you describe.
The Streimel. He was wearing a Streimel in Jerusalem. He was even wearing a Streimel in Paris on Shabbos, but only at home. He didn't walk in the street with the Streimel. But in Jerusalem, he was walking with the street.
Yeah.
We'll film it later. Yeah. Okay. What kind of education had your father had?
I don't know.
Man.
He was a very clever man. Proved that he was clever in the Pirkei Avot, in the Ethics of the Father. He says, "Ezehu Chacham, who is clever, Haroet Hanolad, who knows what will happen." My father left Germany in 1933 after a certain incident. A friend of him, of my father's friend, Pinchas Weichselbaum was his name.
In Frankfurt.
They used to daven in the same synagogue. He had a sack renewal factory. They used old sacks, they used to clean them, sew them wherever they were necessary, and sell them again for example, if it was a mail sack, it could become later a coal sack for coal. And he had a few people employed. Once he was walking in the street, also a Bobber Bachusid with a beard. A group of youngsters got hold of him and cut off his beard. But he recognized one of them as an ex-employee. He went to the police and announced him. Listen, this fellow cut off my beard. So it was a court case, and then in the paper, I think it was the Fackel, a German paper, it was written, we're talking about 1933, that the judge dismissed the case, that he can understand the feeling of a German youth that an ugly Jewish beard disturbs him. So my father said, "Children, if that can happen, weg. It's not a place for Jews anymore." And we left. He was clever. He said that if that happens in a court case, there's no place for Jews. And we left.
When in 33 was that?
1933.
Do you know?
The first laws against Jews came out. He said, "Avec, it's not good, we have to leave."
Coming back to his education, did he have a yeshiva education?
I think so, yeah. I didn't know it when it was this year, but
And what
The
ab-
paper was Judenraus.
he wasn't the greatest Talmud Chochem. He was a working man. He was in Germany. You can be a watchmaker, and you can be a master watchmaker. He had a master degree in watchmaking, and he was allowed, according to the German law, to have people working for him, or give them a certificate that they are They passed the certificate, etc. He was an Uhrmachermeister, they called it in Germany. And he was very, very good.
Now, if you can tell me something about your mother's family.
I don't know much. No, she had a brother in Holland who died during the Holocaust, probably. I don't know. I think he died during. He was living in Holland, but he died during he got in the Holocaust. And my father's fourth wife, she was a sister of that young man. She got some inheritance from him after he had some money, I think in Switzerland, in a bank somewhere, and she got the money there.
Do you know anything about her parents?
Her?
Her parents, your mother's parents?
Don't know. I know her father's name was Sholem. Therefore, one of my brothers, his name was Sholem, because of, I don't even know what her mother was called. My grandmother from that side, she wasn't alive when we were born.
And do you know anything about your mother's upbringing?
No idea. No.
Have you any idea how your parents met?
I've told you, my mother married because her sister was married. I know they were not very rich, and that was the reason probably that my mother's sister, the first one, married a man with 3 children. Because they probably didn't have enough money to the dunya and all that business, and they were very poor people. So the girl agreed to marry a man with 3 children. She had 2 children, and my mother agreed to marry a man with 5 children.
When did your mother marry your father?
Must have been in 1913, because my oldest brother was born 1914.
Yeah.
Israel was born 1914.
So
Yeah. I was born 16, so he was born 14.
What happened to your father during the First World War?
During the First World War, my father he wasn't Polish. He was born in Auschwitz, but Auschwitz belonged to Austria, Österreich-Ungarn. And in 1916, the year I was born, or maybe 1915, there were rumors that he was an Austrian. The Austrian even people with children, might be called up to the army. So my father didn't want to go to the army. After I was born, I was a few months old, he left for Holland. Holland was neutral. And he lived in Holland a year or 2 after the war, and my brother Mendel was born in Holland. After the war, he came back to Germany. One of his brothers lived in Ludwigshafen, that's in Germany, and he had another shop in Worms. So he bought or sold or gave him the shop in Worms, and that's the reason we moved to live in Worms. Because my father before was in Worms as well, living in Worms for a short time, or maybe he was living in Ludwigshafen and commuting to Worms. Worms is not far from Ludwigshafen, about 20 odd miles. He was probably looking after the shop for his brother in Worms, because Sholem and Lena, my brother, they were born in Worms, but in 1910 or 11. But then he left Worms, because Worms wasn't actually a very Orthodox place, very not Orthodox. But later, when he came back from Holland, he had no choice. So he settled in Worms, although it wasn't a very frum place to bring up children. And he wanted to leave several times, but the Bobover Rebbe didn't let him leave, because Worms is a very historical Jewish town. Rashi was there, the cemetery is the oldest in Europe, and thousands of Jewish people are visiting that town, and we were the only house where there is kosher, so people could call in, not for money. We had a special room in our house for visitors, and people could come if somebody wants to stay over Shabbos. My father sometimes used to urge them, stay over Shabbos, because he wanted to have Yidden around the table. There could be bench Mesimen, etc. Another thing my father was showing was, he was looking after our education. All the years we had a private melamed in the house. Usually he used to take a yeshiva bocha from Frankfurt, teach him to be a watchmaker, and he was teaching us limudei kodesh. So we had a special room for the melamed, and one of our melamdim was learning to be a watchmaker and to be a shoichet. So in order to be able to be a shoichet, he learned with us the hilchos from shchitas. So I knew the whole perek of shchitas by heart, because he wanted to learn shchitas. But then Mother Shulam died in 1929 or 30, and we didn't have minyan, we couldn't say Kaddish. So my father Shulam wanted us to say Kaddish, so we moved to Frankfurt am Main, where we could say Kaddish every day. And then we realized that the oldest brothers are not from the same mother, because they didn't say Kaddish.
Now, coming back to Worms, if you can describe the house that you lived in, what it was like.
We had a small house. now it looks small. At that time it was very big. It was a 3-floor house, belonged to us. My father was Shulam. We had a built-in sukkah, built from stones in the yard. We had a special room in the yard for the melamed, for the teacher, or for visitors. At the ground floor, we let to a family. They probably were living there when Father bought the house. So they stayed there. We lived in the middle floor. Then there was another flat at the above, rented to another family, non-Jewish. Because the bottom also was not Jewish. And we had an extra room for the kids on the 3rd floor as well. So we had, I think, 3 bedrooms on the middle floor, 1 room for the small kids above, and a room in the yard for the melamed. Sometimes somebody used to sleep with the melamed. The house was full, so we had an extra bed for children over there. And next to it was a sukkah.
What is your earliest memory as a child?
Kindergarten. I used to, non-Jewish kindergarten. I remember I don't remember if we walked by ourselves or somebody, maybe probably an older brother or sister took us to the kindergarten, because it wasn't very far. Very interesting. The town is, like I said, Rashi used to live in Worms, and the way to the kindergarten, we had to pass the Rashi gate. That is the official name. Rashi, there's a Rashi Straße, the street is called for Rashi, and the kindergarten was not far from the Rashi Shul. I remember the gate and a big tree in the middle. Non-Jewish. We were the only Jewish children in the kindergarten. I went to school in Worms, and my father was Shulim, as you said before, was a chassid with payas. We had payas as children. We had long payas, and we went to school. My father, Shulim, didn't want to send us to school on Shabbos. And for months and years, and several law cases, the police came. At the end, he had to send us, otherwise they would have put him in prison. He had to send us Shabbos to school, but under one condition: we don't have to write. And we don't have to bring with us anything, just to be in school. So we went to school on Shabbos. I think on Shabbos there was no school the afternoon. Normally there was in the morning and afternoon. On Shabbos, I think, because Sunday there was no afternoon. It was only in the morning. I don't remember. On Shabbos there was a small shilach. My father did not go to the Rashi Shul, because in the Rashi Shul there was an org, there was a music instrument, and he didn't want to go in there. So there was a small shtibel for some Polish Galiciana Jews. They had many only on Shabbos. I think we got time off school for an hour or something every Shabbos morning, so you'd be able us to go to the synagogue, or 2 hours. And then you had to go back to school. That's more or less that we went on till I was about 14.
How did you get on with the other children in school?
With the non-Jewish children, fantastic. We were, first of all my brothers and myself used to play football, very good in football. And in the area where we used to live, we had a little group. We were the main players in the group. All my brothers, very good. One of my brothers later became an international Israeli player, football player. Very, very good. Worms am Rhein was in the first league in Germany. Wormatia Worms. They were very, very good. They had another team, Olympia Worms. We liked football, not far from the shul. I remember when we didn't have a melamed at home, there was an old Jewish fellow living in Worms, a Rebbe, like Bezalel Millet was his name. We used to go to his place, and his wife used to come to the football platz to call us to come learning. And the other players, the non-Jewish players, used to throw stones at them. Leave them, let them here, we need them for playing. But we managed somehow.
Did you ever come across any anti-Semitism amongst the kids?
Well, as children, no. They liked us. They're going around us in school, friends. Years later, I used to visit, when I came to England, I used to live quite often my mother's grave in Worms. I tried to find some of the school friends. I believe one of them got killed during the war. The other one, they said he was a Nazi, but he was not alive anymore, I think. I don't know. We met a few people. Some people recognized us. They always used, the non-Jews used to say my mother, my father used to call, my name is Salman. And one of my youngest brothers is Shmuel. And one of the one older me is Israel. So they used to laugh and say that Mr. Stemmer, Amle Milo Dulu raufkommen. They used to call her to come up. The Rebbe wants to learn or something else, or food, maybe eating. They used to, Amle Melo Dulu, that was the way they used to call us. To the three us, I used to call the three because we were playing good football players. My brother Shmuel, he died a few years ago in Jerusalem. He used to play in Israel for Betar Yerushalayim and Hapoel Yerushalayim. And he took part in the national team as well. Yeah, he was in Hebrew we call it Balam. He was the stopper. This was the goalkeeper. Then they have two defenders, and then is the stopper in the middle, and then the attackers. He was very good.
Did you play any other sport besides football?
Me? Not really, no.
Did you have
My older brother, Israel, he was very good in swimming, and that saved his life in a way. Because he was good in swimming, he managed to get in 1934, I think, there was the Maccabiada in Israel. And he was sent from Paris to the Maccabiada and stayed in Israel. Of course, it was a way to get to Israel without the certificate. You go to Maccabiada and you forget to come back.
Did you swim?
I can swim, but I'm not a swimmer. He was fantastic. He could dive in 50 meters under the water because he comes out. Very, very good.
Did you learn any music, any musical instruments?
Singing. I have a good voice. No, my father used to play the fiddle. My brother Shule was a very, very good player. We had fiddles at home. And we had a big gramophone, I remember, with his master's voice. Mostly Jewish records we used to play. But my father was showing him, there are hundreds of tunes he composed without notes. He was very, very good. Good Baltfeller. One of the best Baltfellers in Jerusalem. And because of his davening, I can tell you later how I came to Israel. Because of his davening, I'm alive here.
Did he used to daven in Worms?
In Worms was a small shtill, but my father, when he emigrated to Israel, in the meantime he was in Paris, he lived in. When he came in Israel, he was the chazan, but the chief rabbi's chazan of the Eide Haredis. And they wanted to pay him. He said, I don't want any money. I want a certificate for my son, for me. So I came to Israel. I'll tell you how I came to Israel later. I came to Israel as a yeshiva bocher through my father's davening. That was payment for his davening. They gave a certificate for me as a yeshiva bocher.
So in Worms, where would you daven during the week?
There was no week davening, only on Shabbos. No. We did just daven at home. Yeah.
How big was the Jewish community there?
In Worms, not many. I think there were about, I don't know how many Jews altogether. There was the non-Orthodox community with a rabbi and a shamus in the Rashi shul. I would say the size of the shul, probably about 150, 200 people, maybe. It's quite a big shul. But we had a small shtetl with 15, 20 people maybe. Not far from the Rashi shul, on the second floor, a shtetl, a room. I think they paid rent for it. Somebody donated the Sefer Torah, whatever it is, and there was maybe on Friday night and Shabbos morning. And mostly people from the East Europa, mostly from Galicia, one or two, I think, Hungarians, but not many. My father and another Jew were the only with beard. The rest has no beard. People had shops, and I remember two were shoemakers, not shoemakers. They had, it was modern in Germany at that time, to have like an automatic shoe repair machine. They had a machine, not with the hand, a machine on a motor, and they used to polish and for shoemaking was a big business at that time. Today we don't repair the shoes. At that time, shoe repairing was good. They had one at the shoe repair shop in the center of the town. People used to bring shoes for repairing.
Where did your father work from?
My father had a shop. He had a shop, quite not far from the center, and people used to bring watches. Or even later a little bit, my Sholem, my brother, and Chaim, the older brothers as well, they used to travel around the villages, around Worms, a radius from about 50 or 100 miles. It was a system that you can pay the town clerk going with a bell around the village. There is a watchmaker in this and this place. If you have watches to repair, bring them to this and this restaurant, wherever it is, right? And he used to collect them, take them home to my father, he and the workers. He had always two people helping him. Used to repair the watches. Next day or a few days later, my brother or whoever it was used to go back, give them back, and collect the money. So they had repairing watches not only for Worms, it was the whole area. Small states, small villages who have no watch shops, etc. So they used to collect them. I remember as kids we used to help them. My specialty was to cook the kishkes, the inside from the wall shut, on the wall, a clock hanging on the wall. What's called a wall clock. But there is the face and the two fingers, and behind that is usually from brass with wheels and springs, etc. If that gets dirty, and then it stops working. So the best way to repair it is to cook it. You put it in boiling water with ammoniac, some cleaning thing, and soap, and it cooks. It comes out like new, and then you dry it up with a hairdryer or whatever it is. We used to hold it, I can't remember, over the oven maybe to clean the thing. And it was very, very good. They came out beautiful clean.
So, how old were you? First of all, you say when in 1929 the family went, after your mother died, you went to Frankfurt.
Correct.
How long did you stay there?
In Frankfurt in 1933.
So did you go to school?
Went to yeshiva.
You went to yeshiva. So can you tell me a little bit about that?
Started, I think, with Moshe Schneider's yeshiva. Moshe Schneider later, after the war, moved to London, I think. Then I was about 1 year in the Breuer yeshiva. And then we moved to France. We left in 1933.
And how big were these yeshivas?
Yeshivas quite big. Moshe Schneider had about 20, 30 students maybe. The Breuer yeshiva, I wouldn't be surprised if they had 100. Big yeshivas. The biggest yeshiva maybe in Germany was in Frankfurt am Main. He went to America, Moshe Breuer later.
And who were the Rabbonim in the yeshivas?
As far as I remember, one of the teachers was Dein Ehrentreu's, either father or uncle. We had one of the teachers was Ehrentreu, another teacher was Dr. Posen, then we had Jakobowicz. Don't remember what. It's a long time.
And were you living at home? Or?
Sure, yeah. We're not living in the yeshiva. Living in Frankfurt, going to the yeshiva and coming back home. I think lunch we ate in the yeshiva. But during the day we were in the yeshiva.
And what did you think of Frankfurt?
It was nice. Compared to Worms, it was a Jewish town. While we were in the yeshiva, we were not all at home. My father married again his fourth wife while in Frankfurt, but not all the children were at home. My two sisters and Shmuel, one of my younger brothers, he died already, they were in a home. The girls were in a home, Shmuel was in another home, and the youngest, the baby, Herschel Zwi, he was in a Kinderheim somewhere in Frankfurt. When my father left Frankfurt in 1933, he took the girls and Shmuel out of the thing. The baby he couldn't take, so the baby was left over in Frankfurt am Main. He was only 2-3 years old. Later, when they moved to Israel, Shmuel and the two girls went with them from Paris to Israel, and Herschel came later, been sent with a special nurse from Frankfurt to Israel. But they joined the family. We joined the family. I remember when Herschel came, I don't know how old he was. Gershon, one of my brothers, who also was in the Heim, when he came, he had already Payas. So Herschel, he only spoke German. He said, ein Mädchenbub. He's like a girl boy. He has Locken. He couldn't understand that. Ein Mädchenbub.
Whereabouts did you live in Frankfurt?
In Frankfurt, in the Jewish area, the Schneigrabenstraße. There was, I know of two or three Stiblach, synagogues in the Schneigrabenstraße. Very, very Jewish. Frankfurt was a very Jewish town. Yeah. Before I went to yeshiva, or after, I can't remember, between one yeshiva and the other, I worked in that fellow's factory who used to renew the sacks I also helped there. I made a few mark money, Taschengeld, money for the pocket. It was young.
What are your fondest memories of, your childhood?
No. Very difficult to say. The Rebbe used to hit us. If we didn't, he used to have a kanchik. He used to smash us, the Rebbes, nearly all of them. My father also, we loved him very much, but we used to get clipped for not being, not from enough, for not davening in the right time, or not coming home in time. Used to play football, not coming home in time for eating. But I remember my father had one trick which was horrible. He used to hit us. I don't know how to call that in English. The mattresses, when you want to get the dust out of mattresses, there is a woven piece of cane. They used to hit it. I can't remember how we called it. Shepherds or something. With that, we used to hit us. You had to bend over to hit us. The worst, remember, is you used to send us, bring it in. The work to bring that piece was worse than the hitting. But he was a very, very nice man. Loved us, unbelievable. All the children. And I always say that his name was Yaakov. He was a better and a bigger tzaddik than Yaakov Avinu from the Torah. Yaakov had several wives, and they hated each other. The children wanted to kill each other. They wanted to kill Yosef. We didn't even know that they are not brothers. Not 100% brothers. But even now, there's no difference for us. My oldest brother was living in Paris. He has a son. We are mishpoche, we are family. He's a brother. No. Although, even so, we are related because they are from my mother and Shulim's sisters. But there's nothing to do with that. The oldest one are not from my sister even. We still related to them as 100% brothers and sisters.
What are your memories of Shabbos and Yom Tov?
What?
What are your memories of Shabbos and Yom Tov?
From Germany or from?
Yeah.
Not much. There was no at home. At home there was no doubt. It was we lived in Worms between the goyim. We never bought anything meat or whatever it is in Worms because there was no kosher meat. But my father Rishulim used to take. If this wasn't at the Melamed who used to learn to be a watchmaker, somebody from Ludwigshafen, from the other town, but there was a shochet, there were kosher food over there. A youngster from there, my father used to pay him extra for the train journey. He should come every day to learn to be a watchmaker and bring kosher food, if necessary, from there. So the grocer used to deliver to him, and used to bring it every day with him. If we needed, my father used to buy a chicken or geese, in Germany mostly geese. We used to send them to Ludwigshafen to the Shochet, and they used to bring it back. Sometimes we had to go ourselves, the children, go with the train to Ludwigshafen, shecht the geese, the gens, and that used to, the gens, we not only had meat from them, we used to make schmaltz. In place of butter, we used to use schmaltz on the bread. It wasn't easy. It was quite difficult, especially on Pesach, matzahs. Where you get that, where you get that from. And he wanted to leave Worms, my father was sure. The Rebbe didn't let him. The Rebbe said, Rav Yankel, you are sitting.
Did you meet the Rebbe?
Oh, yeah. The rabbi once came to Wiesbaden. It's a place where, a Kur place. And he stayed in a hotel. My father was sure to send me and another brother to my older sister and my older brother, Chaim, they used to live in Wiesbaden. So we stayed with them and went every day to the Rebbe. I was very friendly later in life. When I'm here, I've done business with the Baba Rebbe's son, Heskel Dovid. He's about my age, he died already. But I remember him from Wiesbaden. He used to play. I remember even that when the Rebbe, one of his Rebbe's daughters was Gitsche, and I can't remember how old I was, probably about 8, 9. I played with Gitsche, and the Rebbe gave me a patch. Er sagte, ein Ingele mit Peyes spielt doch nicht mit Meidalach. That was the Sabbath, the grandfather of the Heintiger Rebbe. Benzin was his name. Nice man with long payas and nice spectacle glasses. I think he had a Zwicker, not glasses. He had a pair of glasses with no handles. They used to fit on the nose. We were quite good in learning because we had maybe more hours Hebrew learning than normal learning. In school we used to go normally from 9 till 12, let's say, and from 2 to 4. We had minimum 4 or 5 hours every day, Limudei Kodesh, with our private melamed. Whenever we had time, till late at night. My father had a trick. He used to pay us for knowing pieces by heart. If you know Moedim or whatever it is, different things, which you don't open the center when it is, or Leinu, we had to know by heart and got paid for it. Yeah.
What about milk?
What?
Where did you get your milk from?
We had a Jewish woman who used to have live on the farm, not far from Worms. She used to bring us milk every week or every day in a big can and measure it into our. She had a measurement, put in, and pour it in. I think it was cow milk. Yeah. But I remember in our yard, in the sukkah, very often we had live chicken, not growing chicken, but it was easier to buy a dozen or 12,000 chicken, and we had a place to keep the chickens until we send them to the shochet. So we don't have to go to the market where it is to buy chicken and schlep the chickens. We had some people from the villages around bringing us 5 or 6 geese and kept them in and used to feed them every day. Very often we had a non-Jewish woman coming helping in the house, doing the washing, and she used to help feeding the geese as well.
What was your favourite Yontif?
Probably Hanukkah. We used to play dreidel. My father used to play with us. Dreidel or kwitlach. I don't remember much. You have 2 tzveyas, or 11, or 2 and 11. Kwitlach, we used to call it.
What was that?
What?
What is kwitlach?
Kwitlach is little pieces of paper. You write numbers on it. Like cards, but not cards. Not playing cards. We didn't use playing cards. We used kwitlach and a dreidel for Hanukkah.
Is there anything else about life in Germany that comes to mind?
No, okay. We left before the real troubles with the Jewish started in Germany. I never could understand, because for me the German non-Jews were quite nice people. We used to live with them very, very close. All my friends were non-Jewish friends in school. Used to play football every day with them. I can't say that I visited their houses or they visited us because of Inyan Kashrus, but we were friendly. When we were kids, we used to do shtiklach together, we had no other friends. Our friends were Jewish boys or non-Jewish boys or non-Jewish girls. We were very friendly. And when I later, after the war, when I came to visit Germany, I was looking for them as friends. And I couldn't understand how they could do what they have done. And to be honest, I suspect that this, maybe I'm wrong, that the German itself couldn't bring themselves to kill the Jews in the way they killed them. They needed the Polacks or the Czech who had the religious hatred as well. For the Germans themselves, they're not so religious, but the Polacks are Catholics. So the most of the Vernichtungslager, of the places where they actually used to burn the people, were not in Germany, were in Poland. Because I think the German, they wouldn't have tolerated it in Germany itself. I might be wrong. I can't imagine the German non-Jews, which I knew them, that they are murderers. I couldn't imagine it. I think in order to be what they have been, you need an extra hatred. You need a religion, or you need some excuse that because of Jesus or God, whatever it is, tells you to do that. But the Germans, they didn't believe in that. So they had to move it over there. I think so. I might be wrong.
So what do you remember of your move from Germany to France?
Like I said, my father showed him, he saw what's going to happen. And my oldest brother, Chaim, he lived in Strasbourg. He was in Strasbourg. Again, he was making a living from watches. He had wall clocks made in France or in Switzerland with his name, Stemmer clocks. And he had people traveling around the villages where there's no shops, in selling them in installment. People are pay every month, whatever it is. And he made a good living out of it. Good watches. They had, I remember, that was new at that time. It was the Westminster. They used to, every quarter of an hour, bim bom, 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 etc. That was his invention, or not invention, but he introduced it, and they sold very well, very well. So while Chaim was living in Strasbourg, when my father was thinking about leaving Germany, that was the obvious place. Especially we could arrange this that we are leaving Germany to visit a brother or a son in France, so we got permission to move. I remember my father was showing and the small children, they went first. Israel, my older brother is a few years older than me, 2 years. Myself, we were left over in Frankfurt to finish off whatever I was to finishing. I remember a few days we ordered a big trailer with like a container, a big container, to come outside the house, and we filled everything which we could fill in there. We had hundreds of old watches in silver cases. There used to be the watches you need a key to wind them up. Today they are worth a lot of money, antiques. We broke out the kishkes and melted the silver. If we would have kept them today, it would have been a fortune. The same, we had a few gold watches. We took out the kishkes because you don't have to schlep brass, and we melted that down. And then after the container left, Israel and myself, we left. On the way to Strasbourg, I remember, we cut off our pace. We had pace. We didn't want the border with the German, so we cut off the pace. And we came to Strasbourg. We lived in Strasbourg a few months only, and we didn't get permission to stay there. The French authorities, Strasbourg belonged to France then. The border was the Rhine, the river. the French authorities didn't want more German-speaking people living in the area, because originally it was a German-speaking area, Elsass-Lothringen, two parts which has been taken from Germany after the First World War. Then the Germans took it back. So the French didn't want German-speaking people should live there, so we had to move inland. We moved to Paris. But after only a few months in Strasbourg, while we were in Strasbourg, I joined the football club. In Strasbourg was a Jewish community, and I had a Jewish team. So I joined them, played for them. It was quite good. But we moved to Paris.
What did you do in Strasbourg?
Nothing really. We were only a few months there, and I had probably my father. My father didn't have a shop at that in Strasbourg, but he took from jewelers, watchmakers, whatever they get in, and he used to do it at home. And we helped him at home. Obviously, my father used to learn with us, whatever we did. We know we are going to be, we can't stay there, because they probably told us in the beginning, you can't stay very long here. We will have to move. So we moved to Paris. In Paris, again, my father didn't have a shop. He used to work mostly for antique shops, repairing antique watches. Paris was a big town, and there were hundreds of antique dealers who used to have clocks, table clocks, all the different types of antique clocks. And he used to repair them. We used to help them. Then it wasn't enough, so my younger brother, Mendel, he learned to make trousers. So my father should have bought 2 sewing machines, Adler, a German machine. And we learned to make trousers. They used to get them ready cut from a manufacturer in about that high, cut with a machine, the sewing machine, in bundles, and we used to put them together. Obviously, we were not the best tailors. So sometimes one foot was longer than the other. And the fellow we worked for him didn't want to take them. So we had no choice. He took that, whatever he lost, up from the wages they paid for doing it, and we tried to sell them. So I remember Mendel and myself, we went to a market outside Paris, and we sold them. Whoever came, longer, schlepp ein bisschen. So we sold them. That went on about for a year. Then I had enough. I used to be to go every Sunday maybe, or every Shabbos afternoon, to the Hapoel Mizrahi, an organization. And I couldn't find my place. Then I went to the Zionist youth organization, and they said, I said I want to go to Israel. I was already 17 and a half maybe. I want to go to Israel. So they decided, okay, they were going to send me to a kibbutz Hakshara in France to prepare me to be a chalutz and then to go to Israel. I didn't know how my father was going to react for me to go to Israel. So one night I decided I'd take a suitcase with a few of my belongings. I left a note, I'm going to Israel, and I went to stay with a friend in Paris. I stayed with a friend in Paris and see how my father was going to react to that note that I'm back to Israel. My father was run to the Zionist organization. What do you want from my boy? He wants to go to Israel. Send him home, and we will all go to Israel. So I wasn't Hakshara yet. I was still in Paris. So they sent me home, and my father started to make steps to get to Israel. To Israel, you needed a certificate. The British used to give only 100,000 to the Jewish agency, and they used to divide them, whoever it is. Obviously, the Jewish agency was interested, mostly to get chalutzim in, people who will help develop the country. So they were not interested in Hasidische Yidden with payers and little children. They're not going to build the land. They need for young people who can walk, who can go dry up the chula, whatever it is. But there was another way you could go to Israel if you can prove to the British authorities that you're a capitalist. You have enough money, then you could get a certificate out of the quota. You had to prove that you have, I think, 10,000 sterling. At that time, 10,000 pounds was a lot of money. that was like 10,000 gold coins. My father didn't have that money. But there were rich Jews who used to put money on your name in a bank, but it was a closed account, you couldn't touch it. But it was enough to prove to the British that you have money and you could get a certificate. That cost approximately £100. They took £100 to deposit or freeze, let's say, the money for a certain time until the fellow goes to Israel. That cost £100. My father went to, my second brother was already married, he lived in Metz. My father went to Chaim into the Shulam, and they had to bring together the £100 for a certificate, and he got the certificate. Until the certificate came, I was 1 month over 18. I couldn't go with them. Israel, my older brother, went with the Maccabiada a few months before, and he was already in Israel, and I was left in Paris. The same happened to my cousin, a cousin of mine, my father's sister. They have done the same, went to Israel as a capitalist with a certificate. And Shachner, my cousin, my auntie's son, and myself, we were left in Paris. Waiting, when my father can arrange, or somehow we will get permission to go to Israel. We were waiting only a few months after they left for Israel. The Yugoslavian king and the French foreign minister got killed in Marseille by a Croat. And everyone who didn't have a green card had to leave in 48 hours. So what should we do? The two of us. So we decided, we got dressed as scouts, with big hats, with a stick, with a rucksack. We are walking to Israel. We wouldn't go back to Germany. So we walked to Israel. We started hitchhiking. We went outside Paris, we got a lift, one town to the other town. We were very lucky.
We're going to have to just stop here and continue on
Okay.
the next. This is the interview with Salman Stemmer, and it's tape 2. So I just wanted to ask you a few more things about Paris. First of all, whereabouts were you living in Paris?
At the beginning when we came, we lived at the Plätzl. It's called an area, a Jewish area in Paris. A flat. My father used to make a living from getting clocks or watches from the different jewelers all over the town. And he had quite a good name. He was a good watchmaker. And we, the boys, started to find whatever it is, jobs. So we started making trousers. We lived not very long in that flat, then we moved to another flat also, not far, in the same area, Rivière de Temple in Paris. And from there, that they moved to Israel later.
What did your father manage to take with him to Israel?
From Germany?
Yeah, from Paris.
From Paris? Not much, not worthwhile. We didn't have our own flat, it was a rented flat. Not Father, he never was a rich man. We were not poor, but we made a living. But not really much money. But I remember when my sisters got married, my father gave another. There used to be the custom to give some money for the. But we're not talking about big money. But they were nice. We made a living.
Did you learn French?
If I spoke a little bit French, I forgot it. There's a saying in Hebrew, what you learn when you're young, you never forget. It's not true, you forget. I used to speak quite good French. Later in life, I learned even a little bit of Italian, but you forget it. I spoke Serbsky in Yugoslavia, but you don't remember it. Mind you, only a few weeks, 3 or 4 weeks ago, we went to Malava Malke here, and I was sitting opposite a woman from Yugoslavia, and started to speak Serbsky. All I remembered was a song I learned in Yugoslavia. She said, it's very interesting that you remember that song. That was a famous song at that time in Yugoslavia. Moja mala nema mane.
Can you sing it?
Yeah.
Go on then.
Moja mala nema mane. Nema nikad tako lijepo targane. Don't remember anymore.
Can we just come back to
The meaning is, my girl has no shgiot, no mistakes. Everything is perfect with her.
Just coming back to France for the moment, did your father manage to pick up the language? How did he manage with French?
My father never mixed with French-speaking people. All he mixed was with Yiddish people. No, he had no need for it. And maybe, I don't know how he dealt with the shopkeepers who took the watches. Maybe they were Jewish, or maybe he spoke German with them. My father knew a little bit of Polish as well. I don't think he knew other languages. German, Yiddish, Russian Kodesh a little bit, Hebrew, but French, maybe a few words. I don't. Very difficult. It wasn't something I took notice of it. I think he could, the daily conversation probably, bonjour, but I don't think he was very good in French, no.
What did you think of France?
I had no contact with non-Jewish people in France, because we knew that we are temporary here. We're not going to live in France. We're going to move somewhere. My father was contemplating maybe America, but then because I wanted to go to Israel, so the family was it. In a way, I think I saved the family, because French Jews got killed, most of them.
So you used to go on a Shabbos afternoon to, was it a Zion?
Hapoel HaMizrahi.
Hapoel HaMizrahi.
But then later I joined another Zionist youth organization. I don't remember what the name is. Shomer HaTzair, I think.
Was your father interested in Zionism?
Yes and no. We had no family yet in Israel. Although his sister, she also was in Paris, Anfang. Her children also wanted to go to Israel. So there was a tendency in the family to go to Israel. People started to go to Israel and living there. Yiddish people, Hasidic people. Not in the beginning, 10 or 20 years before, only Chalutzim want. People wanted to be farmers. That wasn't really in our machshava, our thinking even. We were not farmers. But then other people in different professions went to Israel. So we can live in Israel between Yidden. But that was the reason that my father, especially when I wanted to go, decided the family goes to Israel.
So how did your father travel to Israel?
From Marseille with the boat. From France to Marseille, Marseille with the boat. I don't remember what date and what time. I think it was in 1934 when my father went to Israel. Like I said before, Shachne, my cousin, and myself, we were left in Paris, and we had to leave Paris in 48 hours. France, not Paris. The problem was, I had a Polish passport, because in Germany the law was, if the father is Polish, the children are Polish. Although we were all born in Germany, we had never German passports. A Polish passport didn't need a visa to Italy. You could go into Italy. My cousin, he didn't have a Polish passport. He had, it's called an international passport, like a Zamenhof passport, like with Esperanto writing, I think, in it. It was that der Staatenlos, they used to call it. It doesn't belong to any state. It has an advantage and a disadvantage. The advantage is that no country can send you out. If you're in a country, you can stay there. They can't send you because you haven't got another home state. If you're from another country, they can send you home. So he could actually stay in France. But he didn't want to stay by himself. His parents already moved to Israel. So we decided, the two of us, let's go to Israel. We were walking young. I was 18, he was maybe 19 and a half, 20. So we got dressed, like I said before, with short, it was summer, short trousers, a big hat with a stick. It's called the Pfadfinder, like the scout movement. And usually people with cars give them a lift. We went outside Paris and we got a lift, fantastic. First we went to Metz, where my brother was living, Sholem. And we said, we need some money, we want to go to Israel. So he gave us whatever he could give. And from there, again, we didn't want to spend the money on trains. So we went again, hitchhiking, we went to Grenoble, Colmar, Grenoble, and we came to the Italian border. I could go into Italy, just passing through, but Shachne couldn't go. So we decided one night we are going to go over the mountain, not going through the checkpoint, because I didn't want to let him go by himself. So I remember one night we went where the border is and we started climbing up the mountain, and you had not experienced that at the mountain at night it's not quiet. There's goats and different things moving. We were afraid could be police and shooting at us. Stones are falling. It's making noises. So somehow we went over the mountain and we came into Italy. And in Italy, we were kosher in a way. He with the Staatenlos, they can't send him out anymore, he's already there. And I had my Polish passport, I don't need a visa. So we were trying to get lifts in Italy, again the same, moving. We wanted to get to Trieste, because we know from Trieste boats, ships are going to Israel. Somehow we managed. The Italian, they don't know the scouts, they don't take them. So we had to walk. I remember we used to walk. Whenever there was a field, something growing, we used to pick it. governing tomatoes, whatever it was, free of the, not free, but we took it. We had to eat apples from the trees. And we came to a place called Brescia. They were packing Afarsekim, peaches. So we got a job for a few days to pack peaches. And they paid us something, and we could buy a ticket. We went to Venice. In Venice, we went to the Zionist organization. There were some Jews in Venice, and they gave us a ticket to Trieste, a train ticket, because we couldn't get lift. The Italians don't take anybody. We were standing on the road. We couldn't get. We had to walk. So we came to Trieste. We managed to get a room where to stay. And there is an office from a ship company who had weekly or fortnightly boats going from Trieste to Israel. There was one ship called Tel Aviv. Onia Tel Aviv belonged to the Bernstein Linie, a German Jewish company, or Schüttwes, German Israeli company. And they were looking for Jewish boys or young people to work on the ship. We went to the office, and they sent us for a medical to see if you are okay. I passed the medical. My cousin didn't pass the medical because when years ago he had some pox on his something, chicken pox or whatever it was, and it left marks on his back, and they didn't want to let him walk on the ship. So he went back to the Zionist organization, and I got a job on a ship when the ship came. That was the dealing was when the ship was still on the water. When the boat arrived, Tel Aviv, I got the job on the boat. I went on the boat and I started working. The boat was on coal, not on oil. This is the fill up coal. The coal gets filled up in a place. From that place, it's higher a little bit. The coal runs down into another room next to the ovens. The coal has to be shipped from that room in front of the oven, so the people who are serving the oven can get the coal straight in that room. And that was my job, to bring the coal near to the fire. Very, very hard work. I was young. You work 4 hours and you sleep 8 hours. And you get different shifts. There's one shift from 12 at night till 4 in the morning, second one from 4 to 8, from 8 to 12, from 12 to 4, and 4 to 8, and 8 to 12 again. It's called a trimmer. A trimmer and the heizer. Very, very, very hard. Schwarz. I didn't have koyach to wash my hands or my fingers or my eyes. My hair, my eyes was full of coal dust. Sometimes I didn't have time to wash myself. I went lying down on the bed at this. And on top of that, most of the people working on the ovens were Italian, not Jewish. There's one more Jewish boy with me, a trimmer, also bringing the coal. But and the custom on that ship was that they used to call me Moses. Why? Because the first boy who started working there was Moses. So they passed on the name to the next boy. But the job of Moses was not only to bring the coal, he was to serve the heitzers. I had to bring them tea or coffee, whatever it is, in my free time, or whatever they wanted. It's like the servant to the people who served the ovens. I remember one night, the afternoon, I was sleeping, and one of the Italians said, "Moses, there's a cat. The cat is disturbing him. Meow, 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 meow. Take the cat and put it on the other side of the ship." So I got hold somehow of the cat, went to the other side of the ship, went back to my bed. The same head, I came, schlepped me out of bed. Moses, the cat is here with us. The cat came back. So I took the cat again to the other side on the ship. The third time he got me out of the bed. Moses, throw the cat in the water, otherwise I throw you in the water. So I had no choice. I took the cat and I threw her overboard. What can you do? So I was walking on the ship, and my aim was, when I come to Israel, I ran away from the ship. The ship was docking in Haifa, but there was a law. You can only get a short leave pass after you're 3 months on the boat. So thank God the 3 months passed, and I was on the boat, and I got my short leave pass. We came in Haifa, I went down, and I didn't come back. But I was afraid somebody might look for me in my father's house. My father was living in Haifa at that time. So my father and the Spoche, we decided I shouldn't stay in Haifa. If they come to look for me, they won't find me. So I went to Bnei Brak. I had an uncle in Bnei Brak. I was in Bnei Brak, and he got me a job with a builder to build the water tower, where the water is running down into the village. Bnei Brak was a small place. Now there's a few 100,000 people there. We're talking about 50, 60 houses then. By the way, my payment was 17.5 grosh a day. That is 7.5 piastres, used to call it. I didn't get paid till today. The fellow went bankrupt, whatever it is, didn't pay me. But while I was staying with my uncle, a telephone or my father came, I can't remember. The Jewish agency is looking for me. Not the police. The Jewish agency is looking for me. What's this? They want me to go back on the ship. The Jewish agency want me to go back on the ship. I'm a Jewish boy, I want to live in Israel. Professor Struck, I don't know if you ever heard the name. He was a well-known sculptor and painter in Haifa. He had a beautiful villa living on the Hadar. He was the head of the Sochnut in Haifa. He explained why they want me to go back. Not only me and another 4 youngsters who ran away at that voyage. That ship did not only bring new people to Israel, that ship used to bring ammunition to the Haganah. And while they were unloading in Haifa, in the port, they could get some of the ammunition down. And the English, in order youngsters should not run away, didn't let that ship anymore into the port. They had to unload 2 miles outside in small boats, the people, and they couldn't get the weapons in. So the Sochnut wanted us to go back. Some excuse, we have been with some Medlach, and then we got shikha. So all 5 of us, we had to go back on the ship with an excuse that we were sick, we were drunk, we didn't know what we were doing, and we missed the boat. So we went back on the boat. But now they gave me a different job. Not because probably somebody else got my job as a driver. I started washing dishes. Started washing dishes on the ship. And I was doing a few things, waiting for the Sochnut to give me a certificate. It takes time. They didn't get certificates from the English. Permissions to divide them between whoever they want to get into the country. While I was there, when the boat arrived in Trieste, there was a Jewish cafe where usually the sailors used to go there. When I came into the cafe, somebody said, "Your brother is looking for you." My brother? So I waited, and my oldest brother, Chaim, from Strasbourg, he was in Trieste. What did he do in Trieste? It was already, the situation was not very good in Europe. He had the business, I said you, with the wall clocks, that people used to go around, pay with Wechsel. I owe you payment every month. He used to take the Wechsels into the bank. The bank used to give him 70-80% of the money until the Wechsel came in. That's the way he was stealing. was a very bad time at that time, and the people didn't pay the wexels. So the bank came to him. It's your wexels. And he couldn't pay, so he made like bankrupt. He was bankrupt. And he decided to send his wife and 2 children to Poland, to her brother. And he went to Poland, and he was in Poland. And he had an idea. In Poland, there's a lot of geese. Every farmer has geese, to export geese feathers to other countries. And he wanted to open a business like that, exporting geese feathers to Italy or wherever it is. When he saw me, I looked not very clean and working very hard. He said, Salman, was machst du da? I'm trying to get this. I said, come with me to Poland and you will help me build up that business. You will make good money. So I decided, okay, I left the boat and went with him to Poland, to a shtetl called Bochnia. His wife and 2 children were there, living with her brother. After being about a week in Bochnia, I couldn't stand it. There's no asphalt even, the wagons in the road. And it's not for me. I can't speak the language, and I wanted to go back to Israel. So I left Poland and I went back to Italy. While I was in Italy, I tried to get my job back on the boat, on the ship. They didn't want to take me anymore. So I'm sitting in my father, in the meantime, said he will try to get a certificate for me to go to Israel. So I was waiting in Trieste, and I had to make a living. So there was a firm, a Jewish firm, they used to sell clothing, not ready clothing, pieces of 4 meter, 5 meter, for women to make their own dresses. And we used to take a suitcase full of different stuff, knock on the doors from house to house, and try to sell them. I had a partner, Shloime was his name. He married, he has a wife and 1 or 2 children. And me, we were partners. We used to take 20, 30 pieces of cloth, pay for them. We paid the wholesalers and sell them double or 3 times. We used to have an excuse, we are from Germany, refugees, and it's German material, etc., whatever it is. One day we went into a house and we looked down, we could see on the street 2 carabinieri, the police, the Italian police with a red band here, walking in front of the house. So we could see, we used to call them the chappers, the chap people. Maybe they're looking for us. So we decided, Shloime and me, that I'm going down by myself with a suitcase. And he, if they will ask me, then I'm by myself. I haven't got a partner. So when I went down, they stopped me. What's in there? Opened up. Where's your partner? I haven't got a partner. And they took me to the police and put me in prison for 2 weeks. And luckily, Shloime was outside. He had another suitcase with stuff. He could sell my part and get me some extra food, whatever he needed, come to visit me. While I'm here, I forgot to tell you about, I don't remember if I told you that I was in hospital in Italy. The first time when I was waiting to get a job on a boat, it was summer. We were waiting for the ship to arrive, and we went to the beach, my cousin and me, and I woke up in hospital. I had a sunstroke. I was in hospital, I can't remember how many times, and the nurses were Italian sisters from a convent. She used to say, that little Germany. My cousin used to come every day to me to eat, because for my food, I used to put aside food for him. That little Germany eats like a horse and he doesn't get fat. But now I was in prison. I was about 2 weeks in prison, 14 people in prison. I remember I was a youngster, and some of the inmates, they were homosexual. They wanted to do sex with me, so it was an Italian guy. Anybody touching that boy, I kill him. He was watching over me. After 2 weeks, they sent me to Yugoslavia, because I had a Polish passport, And in Yugoslavia, I don't need a visa. So I came to Yugoslavia, they sent me to Zagreb. I went to the Zionist organization, and they sent me to a kibbutz Achshara in Yugoslavia. I was in the kibbutz Achshara, and I contacted my parents in Israel, letters, ahin, aher. And then my father, Shulam, wrote back, Gewalt, it's no good. I davened last year in a thing, and they want me to daven this year again. And they promised me a certificate for you as a yeshiva worker. You can't be in a kibbutz who doesn't belong to a very frum Zionist organization. It was kosher, it was a kibbutz, a Zionist organization. They had their own shoichet in the, but it's not good enough for the yeshiva worker. I should leave that place, and my father even told me where to go, Batschka. It's an area in Yugoslavia, very, very frum. The Satmar Rebbe used to come there. So, the certificate, here I had to wait 3 years in Achshara, and here I'm getting a certificate faster. So I left that kibbutz and went to live in Santa. My father used to send me money from time to time to be able to live there. And after a few months, or half a year maybe, I got a certificate as a yeshiva worker.
So what were you doing there?
Nothing. Doing nothing.
Where were you living?
With a Jewish family. Fisher was his name.
So how did you occupy yourself?
Don't remember. Nothing. Nothing really. Fishing. There was a river. Used to go fishing and bring the fish to the family. I was waiting any day to get a certificate. I had no labor permit neither.
What language did you speak in?
Yugoslavian. Or with the girls, the family had 3 girls and 2 boys. I think we spoke Yiddish or German. I think German. He was a very nice Yid. He had the beard, with the beard. His wife was a fantastic cook. Her speciality was the liver from stop geese. If you force feeding, the liver becomes big. Not joking, so that size of a liver. Force feeding, it's cruelty probably, huh? But the Hungarian, they like it. They were speaking Hungarian between them. Hungarian, not Serbsky.
Any other memories from your time there?
Very difficult. Wasn't easy.
Can I just ask you, you said that when you first got the job on the boat, your cousin, he didn't pass the medical.
No.
What did he do?
He was sent to Achshara kibbutz in Italy. And from there he went to Israel a year later, 2 years later.
And then your partner, who came to sort of visit you when you were in prison, what happened to him?
I don't know. Shloime? I don't know. He must have come to Israel somehow. I don't know. No idea. Because from prison I got sent away. I didn't go back to Italy. No.
And what did you think of Yugoslavia?
Yugoslavia was quite nice at that time. Yeah. We were not mixed with the non-Jews. We was living in a very small circle. I remember the Satmar Rebbe once came to Santa, that place where I'm living, and I went to see him. Hasidim came from all over. There were 3 or 4 places. Yidden with payers living there. Osenta, Petrosello, Ilik, another place. There were some very, very frum keheles there. With Hasidim, Satmar Hasidim. And they were farmers, some of them. Jewish farmers. That Fisher, he wasn't a farmer. I don't remember what he was. I think he had a shop. His daughters, one of them made roses for hats, for women's hats, in silk, I think. Used to dip them in water and flour, I think. Become stiff, and then with a knife, with a hot ball, pressing it and making the shape of rose leaves for hats. Yeah, used to make hats. I think she used to make hats as well, not only the roses. But it was very interesting.
How long were you actually on the kibbutz Hachshara?
A few months.
And what were you learning there? What were you doing there?
Not much. I used to milk cows a few days or a few weeks. Used to feed the chickens. I think, I don't know. In the dining room I used to work as well, serving.
Where was it?
Podravska Slatina, it's called. The farm used to belong to a Jewish baron, Baron Gutman. He gave it a donation or lent it to the Zionist organization. It was between Zagreb and Lubyanka, in the middle somewhere, Podravska Slatina. And then I came to Israel.
So how did you journey? How did you journey across? What was that journey like?
I just said to my wife this morning, I don't remember. I think I went from Piraeus or from Varna. Varna is in Bulgaria. I think I went from Varna, not from Piraeus, from Varna. From Varna we went to Israel, and when I arrived in Israel, my father was already living in Jerusalem. I came to Jerusalem, and again I had to do something. At that time, my younger brother, Shmuel, is not alive anymore. He died a few years ago. He learned from somebody to be a painter. So in Israel at that time was a custom, not like today people buy their flats. People used to buy houses and rent the flats. And the people who rent the flats, I'm not exaggerating now, nearly every year they used to change the flat. They didn't like the area, they moved into another area. Paid rent here, paid rent there. And the period to moving had an Arabic name, Muharram. Muharram, you moved. You moved flat. And from one dayar, from one people living there to another, you had to clean the walls. So every year, the rooms used to be colored. The painters, not with oil paint, just with seed, white painting, whitewashing, whatever it is. 9 out of 10 flats used to be renovated every year. It was a big, and a very quick job, all before Pesach. That thing, a few weeks before Pesach, was Muharram, and you had to wash the houses. So, all my brothers, all 3 of us, 4 of us, Israel, myself, Mendel, and Shmuel, the 4 of us, we used to be kalachas, working. We had a few ladders, and used to buy the kalach, mix it with water a little bit, and washing the walls. We have done this, and not bad. Quite used to make money. Some of the houses, when the Babus wasn't there, used to pour water on the wall. It was clean. There was no need to do it. It was clean. All was just freshening it up. The flats usually were empty. People used to move into a flat was completely empty. Sometimes I remember in Rechavia in Yerushalayim. My father used to live in Yerushalayim at that time.
What part was he in?
He lived in Gola, in Yerushalayim. But the flats we used to do, we had one fellow in Rechavia who was looking after 10 or 20 houses. It wasn't his houses. He was looking after them. They belonged for different people who had houses there and rent them off. We used to be his halachas. Fantastic. We came into flats, there's nothing to do. It's shmiri here. The job was mostly from the pictures they had done to fill the holes and go over it. It was good money, because used to be paid by room, not by hours. So we walked there. Then the brother after me, Mendel, and me as myself, Kalachin is only before Pesach, the whole year. So we opened a shop, not a full shop, a half shop, or a quarter of a shop on Ben Yehuda in Jerusalem. Watches, selling watches, diamonds. At that time, a lot of German Jews came to Israel. Some brought with them a lot of diamonds. So we used to deal in diamonds, selling them. Not mostly selling to other shopkeepers, not to private people. My father used to sell sometime to private people from the shop. But we used to mostly take from the emigrants, the people who came. And my father was eat with beard. The German Jews had confidence in him. He's not a Ganev. He will serve them correct. Take one profit, obvious, but what else to do? And we, the boys, used to travel down to Tel Aviv, to wholesalers, to here and there, and try to sell them. We made a living. Then we were living in Geula. My father, opposite was Moshe Ludmir living. From Ludmir Matzes, that's Matzot Yehuda. And Moshe Ludmir's wife is my wife's sister.
I was studying in Jerusalem.
She came to study in Jerusalem, and her sister knew us opposite from her balcony. She should see us on the balcony. She could hear us singing Friday nights, the Mires or in the Sukkah. She said, Ruchama, there's a young man over there for you.
We can't, you've not got a mic on, so I'm afraid we're not going to be able to pick up what you're saying. But if you can tell the story, then we'll get it.
Her sister introduced us. And 2 weeks later, I think we got engaged. And a few months later, we got married. And
So what year was this?
1940.
This was already 1940. What year did you actually come back to Israel?
36 or 7. We had a watchmaker shop, not a shop, a house in Tel Aviv with my brother as well. We were making a living, not too high.
So the war, of course, had started
1939.
39.
Yeah. 1939. Before that, in Israel itself, at one time I used to peddle from house to house and sell like lottery tickets. Then, when the war broke out, with another partner, we used to sell gas masks. They asked you, what is your profession? That's only part of it, no? We used to sell gas masks. With Moshe Bernak, what's his name? Brother, we're still alive. But then we got married, and the war broke out. And Shmuel, my younger brother, was a volunteer in the English army. He volunteered in the army, also as a fine mechanic, because he was a watchmaker. So he was working in the RIM, I think it's called, Royal Engineering, stations in Egypt. Then he came back after the war. And my brother Israel, who was still alive in Israel, and myself, we were thinking, what will Shmuel do? He used to be a painter. So Shmuel, Israel, was already married, and he had a little baby. And he once went to a park in Jerusalem with a baby, and there was a photographer walking around and taking pictures from the babies, and he got paid. And he could, thinking, in half an hour he made a fortune. They all took pictures in the park. It was summer. So he said, Salman, for Shmuel, that is a fantastic idea. Let him buy a camera and take pictures in public places, wherever it is. He can make a bomb. So we made inquiries. We in the house, we never had a camera. We were never amateurs. So we went to a shop, Zivlinus, on King George in Jerusalem. You know Jerusalem? On King George. And we went to a photographic shop to ask him, how do you go about it? He said, the easiest camera is like a Rolleiflex, Rolleicord. You look on the top and you can see what you're taking. How much does it cost? About 50 pounds. 50 pounds, a lot of money at that time. So Israel and myself, we said, that is an idea for Shmuel. He comes back from the army, he can make a panusa. So that fellow Zivlin, he said, you know what, I'll make with you a deal. If you buy the camera for me, if you don't like it, whenever you want, I give you back 45. So the whole risk is 5 pounds. 5 pounds is we are risking. If he doesn't like it, we get the 45 pounds back. So when Shmuel came back from the army, he doesn't want even to touch it. So I said to Israel, you know what? Let me try it. In that Zivlin, he not only sold the camera, he wanted to do the processing. The film processing, the picture processing, and people could pick up the pictures from his shop. So all we have to do is to take the money, give the ticket, and pay him for the pictures, and we get the difference. I said, I'm going to try it. I took the camera and I went to a park here and there. I've never had a camera in my life before. So I took about 10 or 20 pictures, all without the head. I took pictures of the legs, but I didn't hold it right. So people came to the shop, there was no pictures. He didn't even want to process them. Obviously I had to take them again. So he promised them that I will be in the park, wherever it is, next day, and I took the pictures again. He showed me how to hold it, and I took the pictures and the people came. Then he wanted me to make more money. So he said, listen, not far from Jerusalem are 3 Batei Havra'ah, holiday places. Kiryat Anavim has a holiday place where people, hundreds of people are changing every week. Malech HaMishah is another place, and Motza. Go there. Every week you have new people and take the photographs from them. So I started going over there. At the beginning I took the bus. A bus to there, and I had to walk from the road up to the hill to where the holiday is. It wasn't easy. And I came back and I gave him the films, and he gave me the pictures. Next day I had to go back to bring the pictures and selling them. First of all, I decided I must have wheels. Impossible. From the road up, the road in, I bought myself a motorbike. Probably I can't remember if I paid it in one go. Maybe I took from her brother-in-law a loan, paid the motorbike, and started taking photographs in the I forgot about the kids. That was much better. There's a few hundred people who are changing every week. Grown-up people, they take them. I used to take photographs. One day, most of them are preparing, they're going on the trip. Zev Vilnai, a very well-known tourist guide in Israel. He wrote books about it. Zev Vilnai, his son is a member in the parliament now. He was the guide. And I used to...
He was a lecturer at the university.
Yeah. I used to accompany the trip and take the people wherever they went. In Jerusalem, near the wall, near those. Not the Wailing Wall. It was the town wall, the wall. Jerusalem wasn't in our hand then, the whole city. No, I'm talking before the establishment of the state. I'm talking about the year 1942, about 42. I became a photographer. Later, I became the photographer of the president, Nasi Yitzhak Ben-Zvi. When he was president, I was the official photographer in the house. Whenever a visitor came, they used to call me, and I used to take the photographs. I'll tell you later a very interesting case I had with the Beit HaNasi. Yitzhak Ben-Zvi, the president, he knew me while he used to come very often to Motza. Was a Beit Havra'ah from the Kupat Cholim, where the sick workers, the working class people, used to be sent to convalescent. He knew me and he used to call me Zalmenke, because I used to bring people. I used to take them. I am jumping. We used to go on trips nearly twice a week with the people from the holiday camps. Zev Vilnai was the guide. One day, and I used to book the buses and make some profit. I used to order the buses from Eget. The bus, let's say, cost me £50, and I used to charge from each one of the passengers £2 or £3, whatever it was, and make profit in between. Sometimes more from the profit than from the pictures. One day I remember I booked 2 buses to collect the people from the 3 places, and we came to the place where we used to pick up Zev Vilnai. He wasn't there. It's a shame. Other people paid, and I was ashamed to lose the pictures. So I told them, listen, I know exact every word what Zev Vilnai. I've been at that trip maybe 50 times. You want to take a chance? I will try to explain you what he is saying. So we went and I explained, they enjoyed it. It was as good as Vilnai. They don't need Vilnai. So next time, I didn't want Vilnai. So it went on for quite a few years. I used to organize, I used to guide, without being an official guide. But I knew the places, I knew what he is saying. I knew it by heart. And take photographs at the same time. First of all, the photographs, most of the money went to that fellow who sold the camera. So Ruchama has an uncle, and his brother was a photographer in America, and he came to Israel. So he taught me how to process if I buy the equipment from him. So I bought an enlarger and all the dishes you need to do it, and he showed me how to develop, and I started developing myself. At night, we lived in a very small place, 1 room and a kitchen outside, but at night in the kitchen, we used to close the door, add a red light, and develop the pictures. And bring them in the room, used to dry them with electric dryer, and deliver them. Somehow we made a living.
Where were you living?
In Jerusalem.
Whereabouts?
Chof Tzfanya. In a small room. I was telling you a very interesting, a nice incident we had. I used to collect people from 3 places. First of all, let me say that in 1948, when the Israeli state was established, they brought a law out. A tourist guide must have a Tuda, must pass an exam. So, and there will be a course in the university. So I prepared myself for the course with another friend, with his wife also, and Ruchama was helping us. And while we were learning together, we decided that she should try to pass it as well, because she knows more than we know. So we went to the exam. She passed and I failed. She passed and I failed. I had to do another course, and next time I got my certificate, my number. So her number actually is lower than mine. We're talking about, now there are thousands of tourist guides. When we were there, my number was 108. Hers probably was 190 or something. Her was earlier. Once I remember a very, very nice incident. I took people from 3 places. I started in Malach HaMisha, which is on top of a mountain. Don't know how many people went on a bus, in one bus, I'm talking. Maybe 10 or 15. We came to Kiryat Anavim. No, sorry, I made a mistake. I started in Motza. And in Motza, about 15 people came in. Obviously, first people come in, they get the best seats on front. The second one, Kiryat Anavim, they got further in. When we came to Malach HaMisha, there was more people wanted to travel than there were seats in the bus. So I said, well, they wanted to go. I can take some chairs, little chairs, square chairs, we put them in the middle, you can sit down. I had a seat next to the driver with a mic. One fellow couldn't even get a chair, he was standing next to me. On the end, you know, on the step when you go into a bus. When it came to explaining us on the left and the right, the fellow was sitting on the first seat, little fattish fellow, said to him, "Tistalek mikan." It's very, get off of here or something like that, because you are disturbing my view. You can't see because he's standing there. But the fellow was standing there. I pay the same money like you. I don't mind, let me sit and you can disturb me. So the fellow was sitting there, "Ata chatzuf," you are rude. So he answered him back, "And you are an idiot." So the one next to him said, "You know to whom you said idiot? He's doctor, that's not what his name is." Then he's an idiot with a diploma. Ein diplomierter Idiot. But that's a true story. And I have the mic and everybody can hear it. There was a laugh. People couldn't stop laughing. Ein diplomierter Idiot. But never, we made a living. They didn't build houses. In the meantime, the war broke out. The War of Independence. We've been living in a very small place. We moved to another flat, a better flat, while I was a soldier in the army.
Wait a minute. So, I mean, we haven't really discussed, you know, the sort of the Second World War and what was. I mean, how did that affect you?
Not really. No. Israel was. The effect in one way. We were living at that time in Tel Aviv, and Tel Aviv got bombed, so we had to move to Jerusalem. Because we moved to Jerusalem because the rumor was that Jerusalem will never be attacked. And Tel Aviv was attacked by the Italians. They attacked Tel Aviv. And there were a few bombs here and there, not far where we were living. We were living next to the Abima, not far in the Tel Aviv. Quite a nice flat. But in Jerusalem, you couldn't get a flat. Impossible. So we got a flat somewhere in Beit Israel, no water, no electricity. We had to schlep the water from somewhere else. And we had a lamp, oil lamp hanging in the room. You couldn't get a place in Jerusalem. Because from Tel Aviv, Haifa, people used to move to Jerusalem because during the war, Jerusalem was not attacked.
When did you move from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem?
41 maybe? באיזה שנה? Maybe 41.
Wait a minute.
No.
1940.
Yeah.
And we moved to Tel Aviv because you've been working with your father.
Yeah.
Right? And then was the bombardment in
Yeah.
Tel Aviv, so we came back to
41 probably.
So just tell me, so let me just go through this because it's a bit hazy. So you got married in 1940, and who was it that you married? What was her background?
Her background,
Yes.
student.
I mean, but her parents, where was she from?
Her parents, her father is, I have a picture here, he had the beard. The background about the same. Hasidim. She was a Hasidish. I've come from a Hasidish home. We had a good language. I couldn't speak Hebrew at that time. Very little.
How did you communicate?
With a hand.
And where did you get married?
In Jerusalem, Rav Dushinsky, the rabbi my father used to daven in his synagogue.
You came as a student.
He was the head rabbi of the Eider Haredis, of the Orthodox community in Jerusalem. The chief rabbi. He married us.
And after you married, where did you go to live?
We lived in Jerusalem. Lived in Jerusalem,
Not long.
not long, a few months. Then I walked in Tel Aviv with my brother. We had with Israel, no, in Tel Aviv I worked for myself. In Jerusalem I worked with Israel. At that time,
That was later.
it was during the war, and there was a shortage of nearly everything in Israel, especially in the watchmaking branch. There was shortage of knobs to turn a little alarm clock, for example. There was shortage for them pieces in small watches. So I bought an automatic lathe, tray bank, with the motor, which a turn, what's called a lathe, I think it's called.
Lathe.
And I manufactured an automatic lathe with a 6 head. Every move, it turns by itself. And used to manufacture them, and for necklaces, little locks. Used to manufacture different things in Tel Aviv. So we moved to Tel Aviv. I hired a place in a shop, put a machine there, and used to work there. Then, when the bombs fell in Tel Aviv, we moved to Jerusalem. We took the machine back to Jerusalem, and in Jerusalem I worked together with a brother of mine. We used to do the same. Later I manufactured silver items, Chanukias, cups, Kiddush cups, etc. in real silver. Yeah. I used to make a Chanukiah, which I tried after I could afford it, I tried to buy one back for myself, a souvenir. I used to make a Chanukiah with 8 candles, nice, on a special machine, like make from one piece of silver. It's turning very fast, and you push it, it becomes like a becher, without welding it. And
Now this film's about to end.
what?
This film's about to end.
Yeah.
So we'll just stop here. And, This is the interview with Salman Stemmer, and it's tape 3. So I just wanted to take you through where you were living after you married, and you told us that you started off.
We started in Jerusalem, then we moved to Tel Aviv. And then when Tel Aviv got bombed, we moved back to Israel. We couldn't find a better flat, a very bad flat, a room, one room in Beit Israel, without water, without electricity. But then, maybe after the war, I can't remember, we didn't live very long there, maybe a year. Then we moved to, the situation became better, it was easier to find. We found a flat in Rov Tzofania in Jerusalem, and we lived there a few years. 2 of our girls were born there. In 1948, in the middle of the war with the Arabs, while I was a soldier.
When did you join the army?
Before the army, I was in the Haganah. I was a member in the Haganah.
יש לנו ספר של וילנאי, אבל זה בעברית.
I was a member in the Haganah.
So when did that happen?
When the Arabs started a little more out, and the Arabs started attacking buses here and there, as a youngster, a healthy youngster, I joined the Haganah. We were having exercises once or twice a week. Quite often we had to go on Shmira to watch different places. But then when the war broke out, I joined the army. In 1948, I joined, I had to join, I wanted to join the army. I joined the army, and the situation in Jerusalem became impossible. There was no water, no electricity, very, very bad. My Ruchama's mother lived in Haifa, and her brothers. Although Jerusalem was closed, you couldn't get in and out. But somehow, from time to time, there were caravans, army patrols going down, and people could get out. I managed to send her to Haifa with the kids. So she was in Haifa, and I was in Jerusalem in the army. Although I got free every week, a few hours, I never took the Chofish. Where should I go? I had nowhere to go. So I gave my when I was free, to my friend, let them go from my place. And I don't know how many months after that,
5 months.
5 months after that, I got 48 hours leave from Jerusalem to go to Haifa to see my wife and kids. To go there took me more than 48 hours. To get there, it was nearly impossible to get. Via Burma, the road wasn't free. We had to wait till the army comes to go in. When I arrived in Haifa, I went to the Katsina Ear, the officer in charge of Haifa. He should give me extension. It should be a bit longer because I haven't even seen them yet. He said, no, I can't do anything. So he couldn't do. I went to visit my family, and after 4 or 5 days later, I came back to Jerusalem. A deserter, they put me in prison. And in charge of the prison was my brother. He put me to prison. The fellow in charge, Chavilio was his name. He gave me 14 days prison. When we came into prison, they didn't let me in because I had one degree, and you can't go into prison with a degree. You had to take that off. He didn't know it was a new state. The army didn't know what to do. He didn't take that off, so they didn't let me into prison with the darga, with a degree, with being a Landskorporal, whatever you call it.
Something.
Not an officer yet. So, but the Katzin in charge, he didn't want to be, that he sent me to prison and don't let me in. So he put me in the local prison from that little group. My brother was in charge of it. That was the nicest time I had in the army. Used to play poker from morning till night, all day long. Used to play with my brothers, with the other inmates. It was fantastic. And at that time, a flat became empty in the same house where my brother used to live. So with the other inmates in that prison, and with my brother, and with the army vehicle. We moved my furniture into the new flat while I was in prison. And this was quite a nice flat. Don't know how many years we lived there. Then I had a motorbike.
What did you have to do in the army? What was your army service?
I was an instructor, instructing new soldiers how to use machine guns, mortars, hand grenades, etc. And at that time, when I was in the army, no, it wasn't that during the time. After you're in the army for I don't know how many years, I think it was about a year in the army. After the war, even the people who still have to make miluim. Every year you have to give 3 or 4 weeks. And I, at that time, already was working in the Bate Avrah, in the kibbutzim, in the holiday places. So Ruchama took over. She used to do the traveling and the processing at night, or I used to help her, I don't know if I came home. She took over, and she used to take the people on holidays, visiting, mostly around Jerusalem. Once or twice I went to Eilat. Even I once took the members of the parliament on a trip to Eilat. Eilat, Rafiach, wherever it was.
It was when the first time, actually, inauguration, we said,
Yeah.
in Eilat. You went with them.
So tell me a little bit more about the army. When did you go into the army?
In the army when the war broke out.
Before
War of
that?
Independence.
Before that?
Before that, I was in Haganah. In the Haganah, so whenever they called me, or we had a regular imunim, I think, from time to time. I remember once the English used to sometimes close a whole area in Jerusalem, go from house to house, from cupboard to cupboard, and look for ammunition. Once the area was closed in, and luckily I didn't find it. I had a Mauser gun in my house. In Mozart, there was a family, I became friendly with them, where the father was a gafir, like a policeman, a special policeman. And he had a gun at home, and he had boys growing up. He was afraid. So he died, and his wife didn't want the gun to be in the house. So she gave me the gun. And I took it home, put it under the bed or in the cushion somewhere. But then it became dangerous because they used to go from house to house. So I gave it to the Haganah, the gun. I can't remember how often we went to that. How often did we have imunim in the Haganah?
Mm-hmm.
How often did we have to go to imunim in the Haganah?
Not only this, they used to go if there was some, fight.
Shmira.
Arabs are coming to
Yeah,
watch.
wherever there was something, they used to send 10 people there, watching a certain area where there was danger. But then the war broke out, I was a soldier in the army.
So did you
I
come
remember
across
once,
any dangerous...
any dangerous, I remember once the Har HaTzofim in Jerusalem, Mount HaTzofim, was menutak. It was cut off. They needed food, they needed ammunition, and they were looking for volunteers to go at night through the Arabs. You have to go to Sheikh Jarrah. The Arabs were there. Through the Arab lines, somehow getting up to bring them help. I volunteered, and my brother Shmuel volunteered. But they didn't want to take 2 brothers at the same mission. And Shmuel was not married, so they didn't let me go. But I got a pullover, and I got a pair of shoes with rubber soles, so that I kept. I was prepared for going, but they didn't let me go. Because Shmuel went. Shmuel went either. It got cancelled. The whole thing got cancelled. But Shmuel was left. He volunteered. That's the one who later we bought the camera for him. I didn't want to take it. He was a footballer, very good footballer.
How did you get on with the British?
With the British? Don't know. Not really. We had no contact. There was no contact between the Jewish, not in my circles. You know, maybe there was contact, but not with us. I know we didn't look very nice. We didn't look with sympathy at some Jewish girls who went out with the British soldiers. There was a time they used to cut off their hair when they got hold of one of the girls. Yeah. That went on. So it went. I was in that job. I was working, made panusa, but not more. The girls grow up, go to schools, high schools, and I was a photographer. Can't remember how many years ago. My sister in Tel Aviv, she was married. One of her children went to a kindergarten and came home from the kindergarten with a new idea. Usually photographers go to kindergarten, take pictures from the children. Somebody took pictures in a little cooker where you look in through a lens and you see a colored picture, a colored diapositive. It's the film itself, reversed. Beautiful. It was round. So there was a fellow in Tel Aviv who imported them from America. So I went to him and I bought some, very expensive, and I put pictures in, took photograph, bought a special half-frame camera, small camera. But then I decided, first of all, the pictures are square, and that is round. So it's not really matching. So I thought, I made inquiries. Why not? Who says we have to bring it from America? Maybe we can manufacture them in Israel. I made inquiries, and I had a tool made. First I made a round one. Then I changed it into a square one, matching the size of the half-frame camera. It's a half 35 millimeter. You're getting 72 pictures out of a film in place of 36, right? I learned how to post that. The uncle from Hama's uncle's brother, the one I bought the processing machine, he taught me how to process the Kodak film reverse, and I could process the film, the pictures by myself, in color. So I had the tool made for the little viewer, and we had real glass lenses inside, very expensive lenses, to make in each one a lens. And that's the way I used to sell them to the holiday people. Used to sell them. Then I manufactured a little box where 6 slides go in, and a cooker which opening you can put slides in. Manufactured the whole box, and so everyone going on a tiul, on a trip used to buy a box, minimum 1 box, sometimes 2 boxes. I made a good living out of it. It went on for a few years, and one brother in Paris, his daughter got married. So I went to the wedding, came to the wedding, and I brought with me pictures of my children in that box and in the thing. And they were...
I know, I just was looking.
These are the viewers I manufactured. These are the viewers I manufactured. So, where was I? I manufactured the viewers, and it became quite a good business. I made more money.
You went to the wedding. You went to your.
I went to the wedding to my brother in Paris, and I showed him the view, and they all said, I had a brother living in Manchester. He said, Salman, if you bring that to England, you make a fortune. It went in my head. It was somewhere in the back. I don't know, a year later, or 2 years later, my oldest daughter, she was going out with somebody.
Was he teaching his
She was teaching it in the school, and we had correspondence with my brother. He says, if she comes to England, she can be a teacher here, and we'll find her a nice chosen maybe. So we decided.
Has nothing to do with that.
What?
They were looking for Hebrew teachers.
They were looking for a Hebrew teacher in Broughton,
And she
Broughton Jewish. And so she wanted to try. So she came over to England, and she was living in Broughton Park somewhere, and became a teacher in Broughton Jewish. Then she wanted to come home. She didn't want to stay by herself. If her sister can come, be with her, and study here in university or in high school, then she will stay. So we sent the other one as well. I had in my back mind, if the girls will like it, I will make arrangements maybe to come to England with my patent, my machine. They liked it, and we decided we want to come over. So I applied for a labor permission before I came. I got a labor permission to introduce something new into England with machinery, etc., and open a factory here. So I came over in 1963. We opened a factory for manufacturing that. I brought the tools with me. I brought all the tools with me and started taking pictures in schools. I had people, I couldn't speak English. I had people canvassing, booking the school, and I took the pictures. I remember once in the school in Manchester, in Marlborough Road, the headmistress was a nun. So in order they shouldn't know that I'm a foreigner, I didn't speak. I had Jewish students canvassing the schools. One was Sammy Silver. He got that school booked for taking the photographs. And he said to the nun, I'm deaf and dumb. I'm deaf and dumb. Okay, deaf and dumb. I didn't speak. I took the photographs. He brought them back. He sold them. He got his commission, etc. Years later, 4 years later, I went to the same school to try something else, a different hearing, whatever it is. And the nun said, what a miracle. He can hear, he can speak. But it went on for a few years, not long. I think about 2 years. I didn't sell the flat in Israel. I didn't give over. It wasn't my flat. But you still could get money for key money, we call it in Israel. I didn't give the flat up because if I don't like it, I go back. I paid rent all the time, 5 years. We lived in Chandler's Road here. But then, after we decided we stay, we gave over the flat, and we bought a house in Ferndale Avenue in Whitefield. In Israel, I've told you before, my main income was from 3 holiday places, where in all 3 together there were about 500-600 people changing every week. While I was taking photographs in the schools here, and I had people canvassing, booking the schools, and getting the pictures forward and back, there was holiday in the schools. There was nothing to do. So somebody suggested there are holiday places here, like Butlins, Pontins. It's ideal. So I took some samples of the viewers. In every Butlin camp, there is a photographic shop. But that's a separate company. It doesn't belong to Billy Butlin. The photographic license is a separate company. The head of it is in London. And the head is a fellow called Mr. Archbold. So I went to London to see him, made an appointment, and I showed him that, not for us. Maybe most of the managers were ex-Royal Air Force people. Maybe it was not the same. I didn't like a Jew or do business with a Jew. Not for us. What can I do? I can't force them. But I had the girls or the boys working for me as canvassers. So we went canvassing in the holiday, in caravans. They went from caravan to caravan And I took pictures in the caravans during the holiday. Fantastic. People liked it. It's new. While I was canvassing once, we came to Pavelli, and it says 5 shilling, whatever it is, or 5, don't know how much, half a pound to go in. There are different things you could use, carousel for kids, whatever it is. So I went in and I saw the photographic shop. So I went into the photographic shop and I spoke with the woman in charge, Mrs. Chapman, a big woman. And I showed her this. She don't know. I said, we can't do anything without the head office. I said, Mrs. Chapman, I have an idea. Let me take photograph in your camp. I give you the money. I don't want any money. Just to show you how good an article that is for your type of... There's 5,000 people there. I was making a living from 500-600. Right? He has 5,000 people who are changing every week or every 10 days. Let me try it. Okay, you want to try it? I didn't have enough films with me, not enough. So on a Sunday, I went home. I came on Sunday with 2 girls, with viewers, and all the equipment to process the film later. And I had machines. I had special cutters made to cut the film into. You don't have to cut by scissors. 1 click and the picture is in the right size. Which I had made myself here. I had it made by an engineer. And we started, the girls started to stop people, have a look. First they told it's dirty pictures. Oh no, look in. Oh, it's nice. Do you want one of them? Just over there, near the bush. I took a picture, we gave them a ticket, come next day, we will fed tomorrow morning. I took 5 films, 72 in each film, or 7 films, I don't remember. 5 or 7 films, and I promised them for next day. About 5 o'clock or something, I finished it. Don't know why, the sun maybe went down. And I went to the shop and I said, asked that Mrs. Chapman, where can I process the pictures? What do you mean, we're closing soon? What do you mean you're closing? I promised the picture for tomorrow. And I wanted to show you how easy it is to make them. Until she convinced 2 of her staff to stay with me a bit longer, see how to process the film, how to cut them. We stayed there till 11 o'clock at night. Finished the 5 films, processing, cutting, everything, and put them in the viewers and have them ready according to the numbers. To make it short, next day people came and picked them up. There was a queue, 2 miles of people who wanted to be photographed. 2 miles, all around the camp, people were queuing, fighting to be photographed. Mrs. Chapman couldn't understand it. She went on the phone to London, a miracle. Normally when we want to photograph people, they hold their hands, no. They're queuing to be photographed. Mr. Archbold, with all his staff, took a taxi or a car, came to Pavelli to see that miracle. That is fantastic. So I remind him, you didn't want it.
Anyway,
To make it short, he ordered a few hundred thousand. Over the years, I sold them a few million of the viewers. It became the main income for Butlin Photographic. That was the only income. They made money on it. Then they wanted to be clever. They started manufacturing their own viewers. They don't need that bloody Jew. They started manufacturing the viewers, but they couldn't make the lens. So they bought lenses for me. Bought lenses for me. What can you do? I made more money on the lenses than I made on the viewers.
Anyway, we made a living.
They made a living, thank God. Then I went one to the I had clients, not on the Butlins, in Blackpool, in the Rail, North Wales, everywhere. Photographers used to buy them. Then I came across another keyring, a flat keyring. One of my, where's a flat keyring? On my keys is a keyring. A keyring is it? A normal keyring. I started manufacturing a different type of keyrings. My company was called Photoplastics. Started manufacturing frames. Then we started manufacturing photo albums for super snaps, with super snaps printed on the album. We bought welding machines and different. And first I was in a place near the old Odeon on Berry New Road, near Mother Street, whatever it's called, behind King's Road. From there we moved to Cheetham Mill down on Park Street on Cheetham Mill Road. Yeah, again, it's a very interesting story about the building. That's the type of keyring who holds the picture. Started making them. You know, it slides in and out. There's a picture inside, 2 pictures if you want. We started manufacturing them. But then,
You can move it, what happened?
no, it's broken. It's broken, by the way. This one is broken, I have to change it. So, we moved to a place in down Cheetham Hill Road. The building belonged,
Oh,
I told you it's a
it is
broken one.
broken.
Yeah, that thing is broken. The picture goes in here. It's 2 halves.
I can't.
It's a broken one, put it back. No,
No.
doesn't matter.
Here you are.
So we moved to Cheetham Hill Road in a building. The building belonged to a woman.
No, he keeps my picture here. a very old one. Here.
Oh, yes.
Here we are, the 2 of us. But it's broken.
Remind me to get a new one. So the building belonged, a building in 3 floors, belonged to a woman. She lives in Bowden somewhere, I don't know, South Manchester. She let that building to the electricity board with a lease for 25 years, £500 rent a year. She was quite old, and she think that will be enough for her as long as she lives. The building became too small for the electricity board, and they gave the lease over to Olivetti. No profit, same money, 500 you continue paying. Olivetti was there several years, and they gave it over to me. Can't remember what year it was. Same price, £500 a year. I had to go with the lease. I let the top, the bottom, the ground floor I let to somebody, and the top floor I let to somebody. I got more money in than it cost me. So the middle floor and some of the ground floor didn't cost me anything. Don't know how many years ago, talking about 10 or 15 years ago?
No.
15 years, it doesn't matter, 15 years ago, a surveyor came, sent from the woman's solicitor, survey the building. They want to increase the rent. Because £500 a year wasn't probably enough for that woman. And he looked around with a plan. There should be a fireplace here. No fireplace. That's the way I got it. Either Olivetti or the electricity board built the wall there, and there's no fireplace. There used to be a wall here. He came with a letter from the solicitor. Everything has to be back like it's on the plan. It would have cost me over £30,000 to put everything back. So I started negotiating with the solicitor. How much do you want for the rent now? In place 500, they want 900. Okay, so £900. How much money you want? Put the money in the bank. Give you £900. Don't make me investing money in things which I don't need. So, what do you want? £9,000 £900 a year. What is it worth? 10,000? To make it short, I bought the building for £28,000, and I don't have to invest that money into things. I bought the building. I sold the building a few years later. I think I got nearly 50, yeah?
I don't know.
About
Not
50.
sure.
And I bought another building in Bury, Beautiful building.
Still there?
Still there. About 10 years ago, I think, I gave it over to my son. And he changed the main income of his company. He changed the name of his company from Photoplastics to MyDent. MyDent is dental supply. Why dental supply? I have a nephew in Paris, my oldest brother's son. He is a dentist, but he is not practicing dentistry. He has the biggest dental supply company in Europe. The biggest in Europe. And my son is supplying him some of the items we manufacture. And my son himself also has a catalog which goes out once or twice a year and supplying English dentists. But we manufacture. We have automatic machines, manufacture disposables mostly, trays, mixing bowls, whatever it is. And now he's employing about 10 people on automatic machines, full automatic machines. One machine costs £100,000.
So when you came over to England,
After 5 years here, we became British citizens.
what did you think of England?
England is fantastic.
Huh?
I think England, I always say this, a country where football is more important than politics is a good country. or compared to the communist countries. In Russia, you need a permit to go out. In England, you need a permit to go in. That's the difference. No, it's good. And I like English people. To be honest, I'm here now 40 odd years. I came in '63, now we're 2006. I can't really say that I came across anti-Semitism, except the Butlins, which I suspect that the reason was they didn't want to hear anything from me, but changed their mind obviously later, which could be anti-Semitism, I don't know, or could be just disliking foreigners because they could see on my English that I'm not English. One small incident we had with one of our people, an employer in our factory, where we had to fire him, and when he went out, bloody Jew. He came back later. He came back to work. And his brother is still working till today.
Apologize.
Okay. I don't think that's anti-Semitism. It's just, that's the way that we are talking. I'm saying a paki. I'm using it as well.
But I experienced it in university. You know, when
I'm afraid you've not got a mic.
No, man, she wants to ask.
No. I was going to say, how did you adjust to life here?
Fine, like I was saying, we are here now. My 2 daughters got married. That's the reason we decided to stay here, first of all. They married before the 5 years. We said we had 5 years to try it if you want to stay. If they got married, and we had grandchildren already here, so we decided we have one more son. He was younger, 6 or 7 years between. How many years between Rachel and Gideon? What's the age difference between Rachel and Gideon? מה ההבדל בגיל שבין רחל וגדעון?
גדעון 7.5.
7.5 years difference. So he's much younger. But he grew up, he went to university, and originally he wanted to be in optics, but he couldn't stand it, looking into other people's eyes. So he came into the business and he took over. He's quite successful, he's good, he's a governor in school in King David. He has, my oldest daughter has 2 children, my younger daughter has 3 children, my son has 3 daughters. Altogether we have 8 grandchildren and 17.5 great-grandchildren. And thank God we see them every week, they come to us every week. I spoke on the phone this morning to one of my great-grandchildren. Thank God. I don't regret. We go to Israel, minimum once a year, sometimes twice a year.
They are
She
coming.
still has a brother there. I have 1, 2, 3 brothers and 2 sisters in Israel. And we're on the phone every week, minimum, several times a week.
My brother
I
is the
phone them,
youngest
they
in
phone
the
us.
family.
My sister, whenever she has a good joke, she goes on the phone, takes me on the phone. She told me a good joke, by the way, the other day. A doctor had to go for 2, 3 days away. So he asked his friend, can you do me a favor, can you take over? I'm not a doctor. Doesn't matter. Here I give you a list of specialists. Anybody who comes with some pain, send him to a specialist. I've written for what? Somebody has pain, send him to this one. Somebody has this one, send him to here. Came back after a few days. Knew how was it? Fine. But one woman came. She says, she didn't have sex, didn't see a man for 7 months. So what did you do? I sent her to an eye specialist.
Is there anything that you miss about Israel, living here?
Difficult to say. No. I cannot tell you. I like it here. I have a good reputation as a Baltfil, as a chazan. Wherever I come, in every synagogue nearly, people want me to daven, to be the leader. Even this Shabbos, Friday night I davened in Shomer Hadas, and Shabbos morning I davened Musaf. Rosh Hashanah Yom Kippur I davened in the shrubbery, because they had no chazan this year. I can't complain. I play cards twice a week, poker. With the same people I play already 35 years. One is a doctor, the other one was a doctor. It's not bad. Can't complain. Our flat is quite nice.
What made you move originally up to Whitefield? You say you lived in Whitefield at first.
We got a house in Whitefield, and I enjoyed it. We went to see a house in Whitefield. At that time, we lived in Ferndale Avenue. Our garden was a farm behind, and the horses used to come, and I used to give them sugar. We liked it. It's like living in the country. Now they build houses there.
But since then they built up, you won't recognize.
We paid £6,500 for the house. I think we had a small mortgage. We paid it very quick. We sold it now this year.
And which shul did you belong to up there?
In Whitefield.
That was the Whitefield.
Yeah, and I used to be the second chazan. Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur. I helped quite a lot in building up the community in Whitefield. Some of them still prefer me over all the chazonim they had there. I used to tell them jokes. Can I tell you a good joke?
Well, it's really your life story we're after, but...
No, only this week I had a good joke. I think my sister told me the joke. Margaret Thatcher, when she was Prime Minister, went to a meeting in Coventry with the trade union. And Dennis, her husband, asked her, Margaret, can I come with you? She said, what do you mean, come with me? What are you going to do? We have a meeting from 10:30, might go until 1 or 2 o'clock in the afternoon. So he says, I'm going to play golf in Coventry. I know the golf course. She said, you want to play golf? Why not take the train in the morning and you can play all morning? And on the way back, we pick you up. He agreed. He told the secretary, book me a ticket first class from London to Coventry and a cabin in the first class apartment, compartment for me. In the morning I came to the station, there was no ticket. Nobody booked the ticket. So I went to the counter and bought the ticket. He went first class, there's one compartment reserved. So he thinks to himself, very good. They didn't forget to reserve me a compartment. He went in and he sat down, took off his shoes, his tie. In Watford, the train stops, 6 lunatics from a lunatic asylum come in and sitting all around him. Then the supervisor comes in and with the lunatics. And she starts counting. 1, 2, 3. Who are you? I'm the Prime Minister's husband. 4, 5, 6, 7. I can't understand. I left the asylum with 6 crazy. Now I have 7. My sister told me that on the phone from Israel.
Tell me about your siblings in Israel, where they ended up, what they, where they're living, what they
My family
what
in
they
Israel?
became, yes.
My oldest brother is 92. He's retired now. He used to be a cinema operator, operating the machinery in the cinema. He was a milkman before, but he became an operator. He has children, grandchildren, great-grandchildren now. My youngest brother, he is a diamond merchant in the Bursa. The one with the beard, he was the head of the Frum organization, the Frum Jeden in Jerusalem. Rosh Ha'eda Haredit, the head of the Eda Haredis, and he was in charge, I think, of giving out hechsherim for food, different things. People really, now it's been very, very ill, had a stroke, they can't go out. My sisters, they're retired now. My younger sisters, has 2 sons. One is the head of all the eye specialists in Israel. He is the head of the eye department in Tel HaShomer Hospital. Very, very nice fellow. And the other one is a businessman, building supply. He has a company. My older sister, she has 2 daughters. She had a son, the son died.
Her husband died a few weeks
Her husband died also a few weeks ago, yeah.
the age of 92.
I have a brother in London who used to be in diamonds, now retired. That's all, more or less. My brother in Israel who died, he has 2 sons. They're both solicitors.
When did you first pay a visit back?
To Israel?
Not to Israel, no, to Worms and to the place of your birth.
From here, I used to go mainly to Israel, to Germany, to visit my mother's grave. My mother is buried in Worms. We went to see her. Several years ago, I can't remember how many years ago, when Karen got married. When Karen got married.
It's now nearly 18 years.
18 years ago, my oldest granddaughter got married. All my brothers and sisters came to the wedding. I think that picture has been taken then.
Not this one.
No?
Sally, the one over there.
Could be.
In
There's
our
another
town
picture,
in
yeah.
Whitefield.
Then we decided we all go to Worms to visit our mother's grave. Although one of them, it wasn't his mother, it was his auntie. My mother was his auntie. But he also went with us. We all went, we took 2 cars, and we went to...
Straight to Rome.
No, but we took the cars here. We took the ferry. Not from Hull?
No, the lawyer in town.
Sure. From Hull to Zeebrugge. We took the ferries, and we all, from Zeebrugge in Belgium, we all went to Worms. And we visited my mother's grave. But during the years, we used to go quite often to Germany to visit my mother. There was a time at the beginning when I used to buy cameras in Munich. I had a wholesaler who used to could buy cheaper from him if I needed cameras. half-frame cameras, whatever it is, when I used to do the cookers.
You've been many times.
Yeah, during the holiday, we took the car. I mean, the first year we used to travel quite a lot in England, to see England, Scotland, everywhere. But then we started to go further. I remember once my younger daughter, she was living in Bathill, in Prestwich, and her husband is a solicitor. We had a friend, one friend an accountant, and one friend an architect. The three of them decided to buy a plot of land in Bamford. You know, Rochdale, Bamford. They built 3 beautiful houses. Until the house was finished and they moved in, my youngest daughter, she said, it's not for me. The children have no friends there. It's a Goyish area. I don't want to live there. I want in a Jewish area. She sold the bungalow and moved into where she's living now, corner Hilton Lane. They became more frum, and they didn't want the kids to grow up over there. And we moved to Whitefield after 5 years living in Chandler's Road. I bought a house. It's nice. I like Manchester. I think it's nice. And we started traveling. They're asking how often we have been in Germany. We're going back quite often. We took when my daughter was in Bamford, and the house in Bamford was not ready. So she had to move out from her house. So she wanted to move in with us, not here, where we lived in Whitefield. So I said, I don't want my grandchildren to disturb me. Take the house and we go away. I took the car, left them in the house, and we started traveling. We went to France, Spain, Italy, Yugoslavia, Austria, Germany, and every time on the phone, what's the house? Not finished? We come next week. And we traveled around for 2 months, everywhere. Didn't want my grandchildren to disturb me until they finished. Very nice. We traveled all over with the car. Been in Germany several times. In France, I had 2 brothers there.
How do you feel towards Germany?
I said, I don't know. If I come across young people, no problem. If I come across older people, if they're older, and I start thinking, where have they been during the war? They could be one of the people who killed my brother or sister. No, it's very difficult, very difficult.
Which was the brother and sister that...
I've lost 2 sisters in Germany.
Right.
And my brother has lost a wife and 2 children. And I've lost uncles. You can't count them. Probably a few hundred people in the family are gone.
When did you discover what had happened?
Probably after the war. I remember from Israel we tried once, we know we had a sister in a camp, a younger sister, not the oldest one. And we tried to make contact, maybe we can bribe somebody and get them out, etc. We couldn't do it. We were afraid to go back actually to Germany. I tried from Yugoslavia, from other places, maybe somebody can have contact. Couldn't do anything. Nobody had contact with Germany itself.
How aware were you of what was going on at the time?
Nothing. We didn't know. We know they're in the Arbeitslager. They're there to work. Okay, if the work, so what? Other people work as well. But nobody thought about Vernichtung, that they're destroying them, or killing them. No. Nobody knew. Maybe people knew. Nobody spoke about it. No.
And in terms of your identity, how would you describe yourself?
Israeli. I think I'm Israeli. My machshavot, I'm thinking, mostly in Hebrew. That's why we speak only Hebrew between us. With the children, only Hebrew. With the grandchildren, Hebrew and English. With the great-grandchildren, Hebrew and English. But I personally think I'm Israeli. And I'm not an English Jew. No, I'm Israeli.
Oh, we go often, you know.
And even during the davening, 90% what I'm davening Lakshan Kodesh, the way I was brought up, Burich Atu. As soon as I come to a piece where I'm not saying daily or it's not used, I only can say it in Hebrew. Maftia, for example. If I get mafta in shul, I can only say it in Hebrew. I can't say. It doesn't come out. If I want to understand what I'm saying, I have to say it in Hebrew. Okay, the rest of the normal davening, Shabbosik davening during the week, I daven Asher Yoshve Besecho. That's the way I was brought up. But if I, very often during the davening, I mix Hebrew words in.
You know, he told you his life story. That, you know, till about a few years ago, 4 or 5 years ago, he was invited to daven in Spain for Rosh Hashanah Yom Kippur. And every year, for me, it was 2 weeks holiday. They asked him, how much do you charge? He said, I'm not a Chazan profession.
I didn't take a penny.
I don't take money, but the expenses.
They
So
pay my expenses, the hotel, whatever it is, and used to daven. Fantastic. I think it's a fantastic mitzvah. You know Marbella? Nice place. Around Marbella, in the area, is about 250 or 300 Jewish people who have no contact with Judaism. There is one shul in Marbella, a Sephardi shul. In the Ashkenazim don't like that, the davening all this. So there's a fellow there who married a Sephardi girl from Marbella, and he wanted an Ashkenazi shul. So in the garden of the Sephardi shul, they're putting up a tent and making an Ashkenazi minyan. And I started it. They heard me davening once, and he said, Salman, if you come, I make it. And he made, every year, 250 people are coming to shul. They come by cars. I don't care, let them come by cars, as long as they're coming. They come and they enjoy it, and they mix each other, they meet each other. Very great. Now it's continue. Then it became too difficult for me. I was in my 80s already. And I couldn't stand on the legs because the Baltfiller there has to do everything. Starts in the morning, Shachris, Bruches, Shachris, Musaf, Leining, Minche. I couldn't stand. My legs hurt me. I had cramps in my legs. So I gave it over to a young man. From here, from Manchester. Woodgrove.
I remember his name. Anyway, 1 year.
Woodgrove or something. He went for a year or two, but now there's a Rabbi Groundland. He goes there every year. But I believe they don't want Groundland anymore. They want somebody who can daven in Hebrew. Because the Sephardim want to unite on Rosh Hashanah Yom Kippur to daven together. He wants somebody who can daven in Hebrew.
No, he said he's not going. Did he go this year?
No, it was. They don't want. He doesn't want to go anymore.
But he enjoyed it. He went there for
Yeah,
a few years.
Groundland enjoyed it.
So where did your children, they went to school in Israel, did they?
Yeah.
Yeah. But they
One-
came,
The younger one went to a high school here and then to university here.
which high school?
There was on Moore Lane was a high school, I think. Moore Lane, quite
Jewish high.
not Jewish high. No,
They for the girls.
Rachel wasn't in a Jewish school.
The girls' high school.
It was a girls' high school, but not Jewish.
What's its name?
Mixed
That's no, the Jewish.
on Moore Lane. Are you from Manchester, born?
Well, I know the different schools, but
No, sorry. It's the
Further down, nearly opposite the Heathlands or whatever it is, Moore Lane, was a school. She was there in the school, then she went to university. And even now she's a grandma. She has a thing. She made another
She
degree.
retired last year. She was a
Another
teacher in
degree now.
Yavne.
what was her first degree?
Rachel, Maya,
Nothing.
רחל עברה את האוניברסיטה.
בטח.
מה היא קיבלה? איזה תעודה?
מה? היא עשתה כבר שניים. BA, MA, she's already, if she does now a course at university, it's for PhD.
Yeah, but what was her first degree in? What subject did she take?
Geography, I think.
Jewish studies.
Jewish studies and geography.
Right. And then she became a teacher?
מה הדגרי השני? Aramaic, I think. She's very good.
Now
Do you know
she
her?
studies now.
Do you know Rachel?
Yes.
She's a very good teacher.
So who did Rachel marry,
Jeffrey Marks, solicitor.
and how many children?
They have 3 children. They have how many grandchildren? 12, I
I
think.
don't know, 13 could be, or
12 or 13.
And your oldest daughter, what
Has
did she do?
2 god. She stopped teaching. Her husband is retired now.
Who did she marry?
Epstein, Bernard Epstein. He was a businessman, plastic, selling properties, etc. They have 2 daughters. One is married here to an Irish boy. They also have
here
2 children.
they are coming
Noyek,
back today
you know
from
Noyek?
Israel.
In timber business. Quite big. She lives on Danesway. Big house. Big money. And they have 2 daughters. One of them has 2 children, Noyek, and the other one has 1 baby, a miracle. She had a baby after 36
What, 26
26 weeks pregnancy. The baby was 1 pound weight. You could hold her in the hand. And she's a beautiful girl. If you want, I phone her up and you can talk to her.
She's now 2 years old and she's very, very
And then
nice.
your son, who did he marry?
Lux, Dina Lux. She has a shop on Berry Old Road, Bell Harbor. A big shop. She's a nice family.
And his children?
They have 3 daughters. 1 married, 2 not married.
Now this film's about to end, so I'm going to stop there. I was just asking you, recapping, and I was just interested in, what effect the Second World War had on the community that were living in Palestine at that time, and, in what way, life might have been more difficult.
I really, I don't remember anything special. The shortage went. During the war there was shortage. Everything was short. There was no people used to be queuing to get neft. The heating or the cooking was on oil, and the wagon or the car, I think it was horse with a horse, sometime a car used to sell neft. And every household used to have a container and fill it up with neft, so you can cook. You used to cook on a primus. You know a primus? It's like a little. You pump it up and you have a fire in the house to cook. You used to get neft once a month or once a week, even less, and there were queues of people queuing up, and you had to schlep it. You had the container. That was a shortage during the war, and obviously you couldn't buy anything. The shops were empty, and you couldn't buy anything without coupons. When the war finished, all that was finished.
Did you used to have blackout?
Sure, you had to put the black curtains on the windows. You used to get fined if they could see light in Jerusalem.
It was dark.
What other shortages were there? You were talking about furniture as well.
Everything, nothing. You couldn't get everything. Everything imported to Israel stopped the import. Nothing came in. So there was a shortage of everything.
That's
I remember.
He started in his brother to make parts for
I remember I had a friend who used to sell anchovy pasta in boxes, and he sold it to. I went with him to Tel Aviv to sell it to a wholesaler. And so there was a story that the wholesaler sold it to shopkeepers, and the shopkeeper to market people. And then somebody opened the box and it was smelling. I said, that's impossible. That's not for eating, it's for selling. One sell to the other. They're not the same way it used to be. Everything was old and not used. You couldn't get anything.
What about food?
Even food, I think, during the war. You couldn't get everything. You couldn't get food, different vegetables you could get, because the farmers, the Arabs used to sell whatever it is in the streets. You could buy it.
in the garden where we lived.
But everything imported into Israel, you couldn't get it. And if it came, I remember that some cheese came into boxes, metal boxes.
The cheese came from Australia.
There was no eggs, they couldn't get enough eggs, so we had egg powder to make an omelette. It wasn't easy. But somehow we managed. Especially where we, during the war, actually we lived in Beit Israel. No water, no electricity in that flat which we had. Some houses had electricity, but we didn't have. It was the only room we could get if we didn't want to go to Tel Aviv. But there was still the end of the war. People were afraid. There might be again bombs, the aeroplanes. Then, after the war, when the Arab terror started, traveling here and there, it was dangerous to go to Tel Aviv. Used to shoot on buses, wherever it is. One of Hamas' cousins got killed on the way to Hadassah in Jerusalem. But I think we went in the Haganah. We had to go to Shmira. I remember my place normally where I went to Shmira was the Tachnat HaShidur, where they used to the radio station, the Hebrew radio station.
I was called up to go to the army. And I had already 2 children. So I had to tell them I haven't got, I've got 2 children. One was about 4 years old, the other one 2.
It wasn't easy, but thank God.
When were your children born?
My old Ahuva was born when?
What?
Welche Shana? When was that?
42.
In 42, 2 years after the wedding. And the other one, Rachel,
46.
46. And the son, Gideon,
In 1953.
53.
Yeah.
And then, of course, so you had the Second World War ended, then you had the
Independent in 48.
and then you had the War of Independence. And
And we had another one, 57.
were you still there then?
Sure, yeah.
So were you involved?
I was in the army,
You
called
were in
up.
the army,
Yeah.
yes. And where were you sent?
I don't think they sent me somewhere. It was in Jerusalem. In Jerusalem. If I don't, in 57, to be honest, I don't remember. What was my army service in 57? Did I come home every night?
57.
I think Shmira.
No, can't remember.
I don't remember. In 57,
זה לא היה מלחמה בסיני שם בדרום?
I think she's right. In 57, I think the war was when the Israelis conquered Sinai. So the road became open, and I remember I made a tiyul to Gaza, Rafiach, Khan Yunis, etc. I remember I organized the tiyul there. I was already a tourist guide. And I organized the tiyul to Khan Yunis, Gaza, Khan Yunis, and Rafiach. I remember in Rafiach, there was a traffic light, but no electricity. So they said that the mayor, an Arab, he wanted a traffic light. Not important, no electricity. But the town has a traffic light.
Did you belong to any organizations in Israel?
No.
Any societies?
We were busy making parnasa.
And in this country, have you joined anything?
In this country, sure. We're members in Bnei Brit, active members. My wife was president. My wife was president twice already. She has even visited the White House in America on behalf of the Bnei Brit.
I got an invitation.
She got a personal invitation to go to the White House. At that time, I was in America with her. Very interesting. I was driving in the Catskill Mountains. That was the time when I used to supply the photographers in the Catskill Mountains with the cookers, with the name of the hotels printed on. So I had business to do there. And I remember once I drove down I hired a car. I drove a car down a hill and got stopped for speeding. So the policeman came, showed him my international driving license. What are you doing here? I said, you're not going to believe it, but my wife is invited to the White House. Have a nice day. He didn't book me. He showed the invitation to the White House. Have a nice day.
So you've belonged to B'nai B'rith.
B'nai B'rith, we are
Yes.
members in the Historical Society. I organize a study group in the B'nai B'rith every month. Every month I have a speaker. About 15, 20 people are coming.
And when did you move back down into this area?
Here,
Yes.
the year 2000, 6 years ago,
And
5 years ago.
Which shul did you join?
I joined 3 shuls. I'm a country member in Steenkort. I'm a country member in Strawberry. And when it's raining, very, very difficult, I go to the Sharet Filet here, the nearest one. And whenever we invited one of the children or grandchildren, like this Shabbos, I was invited to my daughter, I davened in Shomer Hadas. And we stayed with my daughter over Shabbos. Because Chama had difficulty in walking. So we stayed with the children. If we are in Zamdam invited by my granddaughter into Dainsway, so we stay overnight and daven in Holy Law. I daven there as well.
Would you say that your religious observance has changed?
Changed till we came to England, yeah. We are more observant here than Israel. In Israel we were less, although very, very from family, but less in Israel. More here. First of all, it's more important here to be religious than in Israel. My daughter, my younger daughter, became quite religious. Her children are very religious. 3 of my grandchildren are wearing Scheitler, my granddaughters. And we like it. I like it as well. I like it, more religious a little bit. I'm not Meshuggah, but I like to be religious. It's Masorati, it's nicer.
At what point did you become less religious? Was that on the move to Israel, or?
On the move to Israel, in Paris already. I joined the Shomer Hatzair, and we came to Israel. In Israel, we didn't feel that we need the religion. It was less important, you can say. But I like it. I like the davening shul. People enjoy my davening. And I enjoy it. It keeps me young.
What about your father? Did his religious level change at all?
My father was, on the contrary. No, my father was a very, very clever man. Very clever. And his motto in life, his principle in life was Leben und leben lassen. Make a living, let other people live as well. It did not stop contact with children, even if they were not 100% according to his. But it's continued in our family. Like I've said here, my brothers. This one.
Do you want to turn it so the camera can see?
This one is the most orthodox you can see in the whole world. You can count them on the fingers. He will be between the 5 most orthodox people, or most well-known people in the world for orthodoxy. Anybody in Jerusalem will ask Rab Gershon Stemmer. It's like talking about more than the Lubavitcher Rebbe. I'm not joking. He's the head. He is a very, very religious fellow, with a Streimel and his children, all with Streimlach and Shabbos. But he will not eat in his house. Okay, yes, not because of kashrus. There's a certain principle, you don't eat shchitas chutz. If it's chutz by Yerushalayim, the Eider Haredis, he doesn't eat.
They won't eat.
So whenever he goes to one of his simchas, he brings his own food. Right? This one is very, very like, he will not give a hand to a woman, but he will talk to her. He won't even talk. He needs a bechitza to talk to you. This one lives in London, also became frummer. He was not so frum. Now he became frummer. he lives in Tel Aviv, not from at all. That's one, looks like me. Azoi. He died, unfortunately. She is quite from, she is less from.
She wears a shadel.
She wears a shaitel, she's less from.
But they're all very, yeah.
We like Judaism. You know what I mean? We like God, we're not afraid of Him. All of us.
Then
We like Shomrei Shabbos, nearly all of them. We like it. We're not afraid. Let's say we wouldn't be afraid, except the two maybe, Herschel and Gershon. All the rest would have gone on a holiday, let's say to Spain, for example, and choose what to eat, what we can eat. Doesn't have to be a kosher hotel. We can choose different things. So we don't eat meat for a week or two. Or we don't eat anything cooked in potential. We eat vegetarian for a week. That type of religious Judaism, between the brothers, chutz with this too. The two, they won't even enter a place like that. Or if we come into a town, all the rest of us, we would go into a church, see if it's nice. The two of them will even not go near the church. Right? We would enter the church, so what? It's a nice building, nice architecture, you can enjoy pictures, etc. I have here two pictures. I think there's a church on each one of them, you can see a church. I bought it in the auction somewhere. It's a Belgian painter.
Do you think that your experiences have affected you in any way, psychologically or in any way?
I don't know. I'll give you an example. I try to understand people. And the same is my son. So tell you about my son. We manufacture different items, and the two prisons are finishing them off for them. Homework. We give work to the prison. They're doing a job for us in Risley prison near Wellington. The fellow in charge of the job in Risley was the fellow, Brian, his name. He was serving 8 years for killing somebody. He killed his wife, I think, and a lover. His wife had an affair and he killed them both, I think. He got 8 years. In prison, he was in charge for our job. When he finished, my son spoke with him whenever he goes there. He's in Manchester, from Manchester, and he started working in our factory, doing the same job that he's done in prison. He knows how to do it. And he was very pleased. Now he left, he got a job with computers or something. I had a girl working for me, not now, 30 years ago. She needed a nose fixing. She had some bone here or something. I lent her the money to do the fixing. Not Jewish. All the staff, non-Jewish. Every New Year, I get kisses from them. Not only a hug. I kiss them. Lately I kiss them on the head. It's like a blessing, it's not a kiss. My son Gideon is adopting now 2 Russian orphans. Not adopting, but bringing them over and looking after them, getting them through education till they get married. Costs him a lot of money. Now it pays for a teacher to teach them English over there in Russia. They're coming over in September. Costs him a lot of money. But I hope so, that we have a fantastic relation with the staff, with the workers, non-Jewish, none of them Jewish. One a man who has now two grown-up children, teenagers. He started when he was 15 years old. Now he's in his 40s. He called us my adopted grandparents.
I tried to help him, learn to drive.
So I was just.
It is affecting, I think. It is affecting the attitude to other people. I don't care if they're Jewish or not Jewish. If they're human beings, or they're schwarz, or they're blacky or not blacky. Mind you, it's not a question about I can like a Paki as well. But they're very difficult sometimes. Pakistanis are very, very difficult to do business. But I do business with Pakistanis. Lately, I have started something for myself. Since I've given over the business to my son, I have to be busy. I can't be not busy. So I started, somebody offered me batteries, small batteries. Kodak and other battery camera manufacturers are making millions of cameras every year, disposable ones, where you don't buy the camera, you get the camera to use it. You bring it back to the shop, they take out the pictures and give you another camera or the same camera, include the film for a few pounds, and you get it ready with pictures. The batteries have to be changed every time. If you have used it or not used it, they change the batteries. I buy the batteries, which 9 out of 10 are not used. The camera is using battery only when you're flashing. If there's no flash, there's no battery used. I buy them in weight, per ton. I can buy 100,000 batteries in one go. I have them checked and cart them again on carts. That was my business. It's still my business. I still do it. I go to work every day. Even now I'm 90, or nearly 90.
Keeps him busy.
Lately, I made a deal with somebody. I gave him batteries, and he bought a factory out in Wales somewhere, used to manufacture ties, men's ties, silk, for the best companies all over Europe, from Next, Marks and Spencer, John Lewis, you name it. The names, some are names sometimes with prices. Some have prices 25, 29, 30 pounds a tie. I'm selling them, you're not going to believe that, for less than £1 a tie. Silk ties. But I bought 120,000. Fantastic ties. If I can find some, I'll give it to your cameraman. You wear ties? Yeah. I try to sell them for £1 a tie. If somebody offers me 50p and takes the lot, I sell it as well. Beautiful ties.
So do you have a place that does the bat with that deals with
In the
batteries?
factory I've given to my son,
Right.
I left myself one corner for myself. I try to do business. It's another business I have done. I have opened. I try to get out of it now. In one of our trips, when I went to Spain to daven there, we went to a market, and I saw somebody is selling letters, ABC, for children to make a necklace. I bought one or two for my great-granddaughters. And then I thought about it. It's not that, it's an idea. Let's make letters like that in Hebrew. So I found out who is the manufacturer and how he's doing it. It's injection molding. It's like a big machine. The machine can be the size of half that room. But in the machine you put in a tool with engraved the different letters, and the metal is poured into the form, right? So it becomes a letter. So I had the tools made in Hebrew. I gave them a picture of Aleph Beis, and they made me the tools. I can't remember how much it cost me. and ordered Hebrew letters, the whole alphabet, into a box and sold them to different people in Israel, in America. Then I had different letters made. First of all, I bought some of the non-Hebrew letters, the English letters, and sold them here to wholesalers. They're selling it to market people with a piece of string or with a little chain, and they're selling them. I still sell them. Lately I made some stock taking, and I have about 350,000 Hebrew letters, and probably about 200,000 English letters in silver, in gold, and chains. I want to get rid of them. I still sell them. Wholesalers are buying for me. In Blackpool, in Real, there are people who are selling it.
Okay.
But the ties, I invested money to make a special packing for one tie. I had boxes made for 3 ties with Christmas, Merry Christmas, Happy New Year for Christmas time.
Keeps him busy. That's more important.
Okay. So is there anything, any message you'd like to end with?
I can only tell you, I would like, she doesn't listen. I hope she doesn't listen. No. One of my brothers, the one from Paris, always used to say, I would like to die from a bullet. Right? When a jealous husband comes home and kills me.
Okay, thank you very much.
This is a picture of my father, Oliver Sholem, taken about a year or two before he died. He died in 58, so that must be 56, 57.
Taken in?
In Jerusalem.
And his name?
Rabbi Yankiv Stebe. This picture is Rochama, my wife and myself, taken in 1948 in Tel Aviv. We got married on a Friday afternoon. We had no pictures from our wedding. A year later, in 1941, Rochama's brother got married in Tel Aviv, and we took him to the photographer for his wedding photographs. At the same time, we took that photograph.
So the year was?
1941. We got this photograph has been taken in 1976 at my 70th birthday. It's Rochama and myself sitting, and our 3 children standing. Left Ahuva, in the middle Gidon, and on the right Rachel.
I think
it's been taken in Hilton Lane in my youngest daughter's house.
I think
or garden.
The date, if it's your 70th, will be 1986.
Maybe I made a mistake. 1986?
Yeah.
1986. This photograph has been taken at the 80th birthday of Shulem, my brother, in Yerushalayim. On the picture from the left is Shmuel alav shalom, he died. That is me. Israel, my brother, lives in Tel Aviv. Shulem alav shalom, he died in Yerushalayim. In Paris, several years ago. There's Gershon, my brother, lives in Yerushalayim. Mendel, my brother, lives in London. Then Herschel, my brother, lives in Bnei Brak. And sitting are my 2 sisters. On the left is Pnina, she lives in Haifa. And Yafa, she lives in Ranana.
And the year?
The year must be 1990. This photograph has been taken in 2005 Hanukkah in my daughter's house. It's my wife and myself with our grandchildren, our children, grandchildren, great-grandchildren, some of the Machatonim, and even a girl and a boy my son had brought over from Russia. Baruch Hashem, all Jewish.
And the place that it was taken?
In my daughter's house, corner Hilton Lane and Blunt Road.
The town?
Manchester, Prestwich.